everyone, it's episode 191 of the Warhammer 40,000 podcast, known across the internet and potentially, by extension, maybe, possibly, who can say, around the world. Look out, sir. I've kind of not necessarily done that as best as I could, but it's fine, because Phil's here to help me, aren't you, Phil? Save me from myself, Philip, please.
I will no doubt save you from whatever you need. Your patron daddy is here, as we like to say. Come to look after you.
Cheers, Daddy. You're an absolute scholar and a saint. What are we going to be talking about in episode 191, Phil? Anything exciting?
No. But we are talking about the Warhammer Day reveals that came out. There's a reasonable amount to chat about. We're doing the gamut of everything this time, which we have been doing lately. So not just the Warhammer 40k stuff, because there wasn't a lot. So we're talking about AOS and the other bits that were sprinkled in. So there's that. Then, rather than there being another topic, we're just doing I say extra long. We always do a long outro. But it is probably one of the juiciest, most interesting intellectual debates that we've ever done as an outro. I don't want to big it up too much, but I thought it was very good and definitely well worth a listen. Stick around to the end, everyone.
I agree. I think, it was a good time all round on that front. I'm quite excited about the Blood Angel stuff on the horizon, but until that kind of really, cements itself, it's going to be a bit of a befuddle for the next few episodes. But before we get to any of that, let's have ourselves a little 5-star review.
Peter!
Oh, hello, Dad.
What are you doing in here, son? What have I told you about wasting your time with these little plastic figurines?
It's not a waste of time, I like it.
How dare you talk back to me, Peter? It's about time you grew up.
I don't want to grow up. Oh, man, maybe there's something on the radio. Yeah, this is nicer.
Peter!
What's that?
That's right, it's me, the ghost of a award-winning TV and radio presenter, Jeremy Beadle.
Jeremy Beadle?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Now, let me tell you here, Sonny, my dad was always telling me to grow up, and I never did. And look how successful I was. So ignore him, Peter, and keep playing with that little plastic crack. And while you're at it, listen to the Look Out Sir podcast, which right now, it's time for the 5-star review.
Wow, thanks, Jeremy.
Who are you talking to in there, son?
Jeremy Beadle.
What? No!
As is tradition, Phil, it is now your opportunity to guess where on earth 5-star review.
Well, I think we've done a few Facebooks. I'm not going to say that. So I'm going to go with... I don't think you do Audible. I think you forget about them from time to time. Oh, you're smirking. Where am I? No, I'm going to go with Apple Podcasts. But where? Where could it be?
Where could it be?
Go with Switzerland.
Switzerland?
Yeah, I don't think we've had one before.
I don't think. I'm convinced Switzerland's not even a real place, Phil.
Fair.
Have you ever met anyone from Switzerland? Ever?
Actually, have I? Do you know what? I think I actually have. Yeah.
Have you?
I have. Yeah, I believe so. It was on a pub crawl and I was a bit drunk, but I'm pretty sure that's where they were from.
They just came from Sweden and you got them mistaken.
Possibly.
Yeah. Anyway, no, Phil, on this occasion, it's Apple Podcast of Great Britain.
Oh, too obvious, man. Too obvious.
Hey, look, at the end of the day, I just do them sequentially. So ultimately, all you need to do, Phil, is remember the name of the individual and their location. And then if you are going to guess, Apple Podcasts, just look at the list.
That's cheating. Next. That's cheating. That's try-hard gamer attitude, Dan. That's the sort of thing you would say, isn't it?
That is true. That is why I am a winner, Phil, and you are...
I'm a hobbyist.
Scum. Right, hobbyist. Fine. We'll go with that. This 5-star review, which is, of course, a prerequisite of appearing here in the 5-star review section, but we'll get to that in a moment, comes via Apple Podcasts of Great Britain and was given to us by an individual who goes by the moniker of Otterlord, in fact, sorry. The Otterlord, Phil, Lord of all the sea critters.
The river critters.
River critters, yes, sorry, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There we are. And they say, always cheeky, never blue. Which I feel like it may have just been that we've read this review once upon a time, but not while recording ourselves talking about it. What do you think, Phil?
It doesn't ring a bell, but there was a review that you read to me a few weeks ago, I think, to see have we listened to them before, and I was like, I'm pretty sure we haven't.
Yeah, fair.
I don't know if it was this one, but if you keep going, maybe it will ring. Otterlord definitely doesn't ring a bell, put it that way.
No, that's true. I definitely remember the name Otterlord.
I mean, what was it? Otterlord, Lord of the Sea. Again, another great classic T-shirt. That's got to happen if I could be bothered.
Lord of the Sea Critters, I think.
Yeah, Sea Critters, that's it, yeah.
That's it. But if you would like to be like the Otterlord and lead the forces of the Sea Critters in a pursuit of justice, I can only assume, you need only leave us a 5-star review, because that's, where 5-star reviews appear, and you could be here, being talked about by two idiots over the internet. What a treat for you. However, if you kind of have built a strange affinity to these two idiots over the internet, you might want to make us continue producing what I like to consider great content, like the Lookout Sir podcast, by supporting us where, Phil?
You can support us over on Patreon. That is where all the cool kids hang out. There's obviously occasional bonus content over on there. Nothing new for a while. Sorry, folks. But, maybe one day soon it's going to happen. But obviously, you're just showing your generosity for the love of a show and not for the juicy premium content that you may or may not get over on Patreon.
We were saying that maybe we would do like an invite thing where people could come and play Space Marine 2 with us, because we actually recruited a listener from Space Marine 2 the other day, didn't we?
Yes, because so it was me and Dan plus some random player. And we were just talking hobby, doing chat, talking about lore, whatever it might be. And then at one point I was like, I wonder if Captain, whatever his name was, is enjoying his personal episode of Lookout Sir. He obviously didn't have a mic on, so he obviously wasn't joining in. And I just sort of casually mentioned it. And then Dan said, is this a surreptitious marketing for our podcast? And I was like, well, it could be. And then a few days later, his girlfriend messaged me on Instagram to say he now subscribes to us on Spotify because he enjoyed our ramblings during our mission that we were on, which we did successfully, of course.
We killed that Hive Tyrant good.
We killed the Hive Tyrant, only on average difficulty, because obviously anything above that's probably beyond our scope at the moment. But basically she was saying...
maybe.
Oh, I see. Anyway, she was saying hello on his behalf because her quotes exactly, is a Luddite and doesn't have social media. So if you're listening to this episode, thank you very much for joining us.
Absolutely. And maybe, just maybe, we'll do some more of that with other people, but
wait and see. That was so the idea that I threw out was, we just chuck up a code, first one on Patreon can come and join us. Who knows when it would be? Who
knows? Maybe we'll do that sometime. Cool. And there's merchandise as well, right, Phil?
There is, again, the Sea Otter, Lord Otter, Otterlord, Lord of the Sea Critters, going to be one of those T-shirts that will be up there very soon, no doubt. But, there's In a Crow's Manor, that's the classic one. I haven't got around to doing the Nosferatu one, which was another clanger that I had made. That probably deserves a T-shirt. And there's others. There's the standard ones. The black ones are the best, obviously, that you can get. And, there's all sorts. So you can support us that way as well. And it's not really supporting us, but you are really repping us with your merch. You are showing your loyalty to your friends, and that's what it's really all about.
I think that's pretty supportive, to be fair. I don't want to sort of...
it's free marketing, really. You're just walking around with it. But, it's not monetarily supporting us, really.
Well, fair enough. Are you saying Lee's taking too much of a cut out of this now?
Yeah, we got a bad deal on that one.
No, that's fair.
But he's a lovely chap, so it's fine.
Exactly. At the end of the day, we're not doing this for the money. If we were, we would definitely... But yeah, no, I always like to keep your tools wet. That was always one of my favourite philisms. You should get that.
Did I say that?
Yeah, it was like one of the really early episodes where Joe was still on the show and me and him were talking.
So that's why it was so crass. But
it was funny because you came up with a statement about it, and me and Joe just completely it was The timing of it was so fantastic. I think it was during that period of time where the intro was just me and Joe going off on a tangent and you not saying very much, and then you eventually would pipe up with something and it'd just be just the best thing.
Well, you've got to get your words in when it comes to you and Dan. Sorry, you and Joe going off on one. But yes, when it comes to green stuff sculpting, keeping your tools wet is key. So it is technically something I probably would have said.
Absolutely. Anyway, let's see what the otterlord, Lord of the Sea Critters, has said. So always cheeky, never blue, 5 stars. During my teens, I was always Warhammer curious, drawn toward it as if by a magnetic force, but to my shame, I resisted. As a middle-aged man on fatherhood's twisting journey, when my eldest son took an interest, I shamelessly encouraged it, and we dived in. We are now swimming through tiny plastic Necrons and Space Marines like Scrooge McDuck swimming through his doubloons. Phil and Dan's... Again, I'm just going to stop it there and just say again, like, these people with the...
Is it meant to be Dan and Phil? Is that what you're saying?
Alphabetically speaking, I'm not doing this just because of, like... a hierarchical thing. I'm saying it, you're implying something there. Hold on to you, what a lord. Anyway, Phil and Dan's rambling chats are insightfully amusing. And I would like to say thanks for keeping it clean so I don't have to explain what tromboning is to a 10-year-old. It's much appreciated. Well, there you go. I mean, at the end of the day, Otterlord, you introduced the concept of tromboning here and now. Did we ever talk about that at some point?
That would have been surely a Joe thing. Here's the thing: I used to play the trombone. When I was a child. Hang on, Phil. I was curious there. Where you? So for me, tromboning is just playing the trombone. Your high school, going, as part of an orchestra. I genuinely don't know what else it might mean, and I genuinely also don't want to know either.
Oh, there you go. I think you can guess though.
I don't want to. I don't even want to think about it.
We're all about that Eiffel Tower lifestyle these days, aren't we, Phil?
I don't even know what that means. That's a joke beyond me. There we
go. Fine. Phil, say thank you to Otterlord and we'll get on with the rest of this show.
Well, thank you, Otterlord. I'm glad it's mine and Dan's chats that you find insightful, because obviously Dan and mine's chats are mind-numbingly something or other. So maybe that's why the order was done as you said, and I'm glad you enjoy that we keep things PG as much as possible, despite talking about wet tools and all sorts this time. So apologies. We do like the old father and son combo that we tend to get on this show, especially the people that we met at Warhammer Fest many a year ago. I'm glad you're enjoying your, I presume, Leviathan. No, not Leviathan. Prior Nexus Space Marines and Necrons that you've got, or maybe you got them from the Imperium magazine. But I'm glad you're enjoying the show, and you might one day be emblazoned on one of our t-shirts, because it's such a great name.
Absolutely. Although it was an entirely independent idea, and although your name may have sparked it, it obviously is original, creative, all of our own, and we will not be sharing any of the lucrative revenue.
Copyright, Dan.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Exactly. Don't you come here claiming that money from us. It's ours, damn you, ours. No, I lie. I don't even know where to go from there. Let's just move on. Thank you so much, Lord, you're a saint. And obviously, thank you to everyone who's ever left us a 5-star review, and those who are considering doing so. We highly encourage it because it is super helpful for us because obviously it elevates us and makes us seem bold and exciting. So if you could, we'd really appreciate it. As long as there are 5-star reviews, there will be. Look out, sir. And with that transitional noise. All right, it was Warhammer Day sometime in the past, and we're going to talk about it now, here in the present, which will eventually, if not, immediately also be the past. Such is the passage of time, is it not, Phil?
Exactly. Timey-wimey stuff is always fun.
Timey-wimey stuff is the best of stuff, not least when you get to talk about new Warhammer fun. And And again, change of format this time around. Again, they've abandoned the pre-recorded YouTube, kind of short form, 12-minute video format and kind of come back with something of a hybrid, right?
Oh, yeah, back to the live streams. I mean, yeah, it was live because they did actually ask people in the chat, but using the Warhammer Plus presenters.
Yes.
So Nick, who does the tabletop battle stuff, the battle reports, and then the guy whose name I can't remember who does the Lawmaster stuff.
The man with the voice that doesn't look like it's his.
I guess so, yeah, because I think he used to do audio books,
Maybe. But when he talks, he just seems disconnected from his voice. I imagine it's what it's like if anyone meets us in person and they, see the face that goes with the voice and just, never quite, lives up to what they imagine.
I was thinking you look exactly how you sound, Dan.
Well, that is on account of the fact that, Phil, that you've only ever known what I look like and what I sound collectively, whereas some people, it's a real shock to the system.
I mean, yeah.
They just can't believe that we're so gosh darn handsome. I think that's what it is,
I mean, we can hope so.
Well, that's what I'm going with. But, so they changed the format. Also, the first of the previews to utilise the new Warhammer community website, which is terrible out of the gate. Well, not terrible. Theoretically, logically, should be good in the future. Just a bit rubbish at the moment as they work out some of the kinks.
Well, it was funny that during or just after the reveals, the whole Warhammer community site was down.
Yes.
And I don't know if that was due to traffic going there and it just couldn't handle it, or if there was some other bug in the system. But obviously that isn't a great start for the new one. And obviously, as Warhammer gamers, we are nothing if not resistant 100% to any form of change. So while it might be better, everyone just hates it out the bat. But I'm already getting used to it. There's some nice quality of life improvements. So, for example, on mobile, it's much easier to zoom in on the images, which actually makes my life much easier when we're doing these exact Warhammer preview talks, because often I'm trying to use my mobile to zoom in on the images when we're critiquing the minis, and normally the website just goes all horrible, whereas now it's a lot better to do that.
That's fair. I mean, that's the thing. It's not that I think it's terrible. I just think, it was weird because I was trying to find the articles that correspond, and I always felt like before they did a good job of marrying the two. So they were very frequent, the updates. And by all accounts, this time around, the stream had concluded and the updates weren't present, or at least not immediately findable on Warhammer Community. It took them a little while just to get that going. At the end of the day, they're figuring stuff out. Again, it's, an ever-evolving situation. But I like the style of presentation. I like, the two guys talking through it. I thought they did a really good job of being really passionate and enthused about all the different things, which is great. There was 40k in this preview, but probably not enough to satisfy the kind of 40k community. I'm intrigued at the moment because the word on the street is, Phil, that Space Marine 2 has brought in so many new eyeballs to the Warhammer 40,000 product. I was talking to the local store manager, and he was saying that, the amount of intro games that he's running has exponentially increased with the release of Space Marine 2. It's really
cool. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the Cryptic Cabin the other day, which is an independent game store located near Bracknell. It's in a garden centre. It's really weird when you actually decide to go there because you get there and you're like, someone pulling my leg. Is this just one of those things where it's not really here and the address is sort of wibbly, but it really is in a garden centre. It's wild. But I was there and they were the same. They were like, yeah, we're just, it's been so popular. The stock has just been flying out the door. People are really excited to be getting involved with it. So it's sort of, again, it always feels like, when they did Warhammer, the Total War Warhammer. They did Total War Warhammer, but they've released Age of Sigmar, so they had this weird kind of disconnect when they had a popular video game that was driving awareness, and then they had no product.
To a system that doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And it's sort of now weird with the 40k stuff. You seem to have this new audience of people who are really excited about the idea of getting in. And admittedly, fair play to them, they've done the Titus intro kit now, which I think is a really smart move on their part to add a intro game type solution that is, Space Marine 2 theme, so good for them. But I don't know. It always feels like now when there's a lot of eyeballs on it, seems like a very, non-optimistic or non-optimal time to not really be coming up with new 40k things for people, like, you know. But I mean, obviously there was Kill Team, and that was cool, and there were boxes for, you know, the holiday season, which is also cool. But it's definitely the 40k drought is realer than I ever gave it credit for. Really, I think it's quite weird to sort of now be in a situation where, yeah, there's just not much going on. But I guess those new players, if I can play my own devil's advocate, I guess those new players who are experiencing Warhammer 40,000 for the first time have so much to dive into, right? It's not like there's not 40-something years of history that they can digest, or 35, or whatever it is.
No, exactly. I think, as you're right, that there's plenty of Space Marine boxes or Tyranids that they can go out and buy. They don't need to be wowed with new minis that they've not seen before.
Yeah, it's all new to them, right?
Well, exactly. Yeah, it's true. Like, even so, I did the Space Marine VR thing.
Oh, did you?
Yesterday. I did.
Oh, wow.
With my buddy Ollie. It was sort of his idea. Me and Richie, Quizmaster Rich, went and met up with him.
Nice.
Because we've not seen him for a while. So we did that in Wembley, of all places. Yes, that was good fun. Obviously, so the interesting thing with that is Ollie's not a Warhammer person whatsoever. I've always known him for a long time. He's been into board games, never been able to get him into Warhammer of any kind. But he's a big computer game guy. So he's obviously playing Space Marine 2 at the moment. So it was like, yeah, let's do this. And I was like, cool.
Yeah.
I'm up for that.
Yeah, totally, man. Totally.
So yeah, he's definitely a bit more interested. He was even saying how he'd like to go up to Warhammer World and, you know, check it out, even if he's not necessarily wanting a game maybe, but I think he's definitely up for, like, you know, doing the exhibition centre and seeing all the dioramas and stuff like that. So yeah, it's luring people in for sure.
One of us, Google Gobble, one of us. Yeah, man, awesome. Well, anyway, yeah, like I say, that was the only thing that was sort of interesting to me, like, you know, coming off the back of obviously such a big win for the overall franchise to, yeah, maybe not have that stuff going on there. But at the end of the day, like you say, everything's so new and exciting to these people who are getting involved in it. You know, I think, yeah, there's a lot to, you know, obviously like about that. And Kill Team 2, which I think we will talk about in this podcast, but this is our first kind of recording for this one. But it feels like we probably should have a chat about Kill Team 2. It is a fresh new thing. I have bought it, so, you know, we probably should at least have a conversation on it. So maybe that's actually really the actual win, because Kill Team's such a great introduction for people, isn't it? It's like, oh, you want to get into this, just buy a box of models, they're 40 quid or whatever it is. Oh, you want terrain? The 3D printing services online, or other MDF providers that can take care of you on that front. But yeah.
Well, I mean, it comes with terrain, doesn't it?
Well, it does if you buy the main box set, but it's hilarious, man. You go on Games Workshop's website, like literally the amount of 40k terrain sets available right now beyond that Kill Team box set is nothing, basically. It's literally...
Oh, but it's been like that for years.
I know, but
it comes and goes in different stages.
Yeah.
But it's never been great.
No, it's wild. Anyway, look, long story short is yeah, maybe Kill Team is the winner. We'll talk about that. Blah blah blah.
Quite likely. Well, it's funny. So when I was doing the Space Marine VR thing, there was these two other random guys that got to join us to fill up the squad numbers, I guess. And yeah, they mentioned that they're into a Kill Team, I think, or getting into it because it's just a lower model count.
Yeah.
You know, lower barrier to entry. So yeah, I think it is appealing to people.
No, for sure. Anyway, yeah, so they've done that 40k stuff. But we'll talk about it in the order in which it appeared. And the first thing they talked about, as far as I was aware, was Warhammer Underworlds, right, Phil?
Correct. Another intro game to, you know, the entry game to AOS, you could say.
It's weird, though, isn't it, though? Because they've kind of... The core AOS product has really divorced itself from Underworlds. So back in the day, all of the Underworlds were supported within the kind of core game, whereas now it seems like any warband, any Underworld gang or whatever they're called, are essentially a Legends rule set, if they even have a rule set, right?
No, not quite.
Oh,
they
really?
said last time when they talked about it that they're being supported, I think, for up to like 2 years.
Okay.
Or like, so most of them are currently still available, I think, for AOS. But a lot of them
are Legends. Like, I mean, everything.
A lot of them have gone to Legends.
Yeah.
Unless I'm getting mixed up with Kill Team, because obviously they did.
Yeah, I think you are getting mixed up with Kill Team, mate. They do. So to be clear, Warcry warbands are supported. I'm fairly confident.
No, I don't think all of them are, because remember all the Chaos ones, they all went to...
Yes,
all got
those have been discontinued, but that's just general range removal, etc. And they've got legend rules, I believe. But yeah, current Warcry supported stuff, like, again, so like with Oryx. Anyway, long story short is this is...
So, yeah, some of them are legends. So some of the newest ones, like I think Pyrogas for the Nighthorn, aren't legends because they're new, whereas the older one, the Headsman Curse, which I had, which is only like a year old, it feels like, or maybe 2 years old tops, that's now legends, which is annoying.
That is annoying,
because I've got that. But it's, technically still playable. That's fine, unless of course you want to go to a Warhammer World event. Thanks, guys, for that. That's my only minor nitpick about things going to legends. Which obviously is a very unique circumstance. But yes, as you said, they all used to be completely playable within AOS very functionally, and it was just a way of people getting extra models into their range. And I think what you could do, and probably the most practical solution for some of them at least, is that you will just sprinkle them into other units as characterful alternative sculpts, basically. And I almost would rather that is the direction that they probably go for AOS and Kill Team, rather than like a proper, actually genuinely supporting this weird unit with loads of different weapon profiles that doesn't really work in a mass battle game.
Well,
but that's something we can discuss a bit later.
AOS manages it better because they've got really good at just unifying combat profiles. So they just kind of go, this is their range profile, this is their melee profile. And it's very rare that you get additional weapon outlays. Like normally you might get like a special weapon in there. So, brutes have their brute choppers and stickers or whatever they are, the stabbers. But they also have the gore chopper, which is like 1 per 5 gets a gore chopper. And that is like how it kind of works, that they do that. Same for liberators. They've got regular liberators with hammers and shields, or double hammers, but they all count as like the same melee profile. But you can have a really big hammer. I forget what that's actually called. But yeah, so there are things that they do like that. So yeah, I think it works better in AOS, where they've kind of just given up on the idea of going, every individual weapon has an individual profile. They're just more like, this is broadly how they operate in a melee capacity, and this is broadly how they operate in a range capacity, which to me is the sensible, logical thing that probably needs to happen in 40k as well. No doubt, well, not no doubt, but highly likely to do so in the future. But yeah, like I think the varied loadouts and things are quite interesting in Underworlds, and obviously works of the game. Again, I bought Underworld, the vanilla edition, the first edition with the Blades of Khorne and
Shades Spire.
Shade Spire. Sorry, I'm getting my words all mixed up. Thank you. I bought that, the Underworlds thing. It was Shadespire, yes.
Yes, it was, the funny thing about that one was the Shadespire logo was so big, no one really called it Warhammer Underworlds because they didn't understand the season context, and it was like, it was Warhammer Underworlds, like : Shadespire, but everyone called it Shadespire. It was a cool name. Yeah. It was a really cool setting. It was... it was like this mirrored city where the whole point is every time you died, because you were Curse of Nagash, you were constantly resurrected, which played into the game mechanics of you're playing with this one team over and over again. It was very Mordheim-esque in terms of that you were looking for shade glass, and that was like the treasure you were hunting. Really cool setting, and I really liked it. And then I think I can't remember the second one. I think the third one was Beastgrave, because that was the one I got. Shadespire, missed the second one, then got Beastgrave, and then kind of gave up because it was just too many core boxes to buy a new one every single year. And the concept of getting some teams just for the cards just seemed a bit pointless and frustrating. So
yeah,
I kind of gave up on it. But it was a great game as a premise. It was great to just get the core box and then a team that you fancy, and just using the cards that you get from those make a deck, because there's a deck building mechanic in it. And you might not have these really cool cards that are available in another pack somewhere else, but it was cool. And yeah, it was a really good fun game to play. I really highly like it when I do get a chance to play it.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed really good. I felt that the kind of TCG, or I suppose it was more kind of a CTG rather than that, which I think is constructed trading card game or whatever it is, not trading card, constructive or collecting card game, CCG. That's the term, because you're not buying boosters to trade.
No, they occasionally did sell some sort of boosters, but they were like prescribed ones.
Yes,
and I think often they did that with a new edition with the later boxes. They were like, here's a bunch of cards from the previous ones, and they're like, these are the best cards, and they're combined or they're themed in a certain deck. And then the last few editions, they had, I think, what was called Rivals, because basically they realised there was too much bloat with the cards. And I think Rivals were like kind of prescribed packs, if I'm right. And it's like, here's your deck that you play with this warband, or here's just the deck that you play with, and that's it. And there's less of a collectible card mechanic to it, where because I think after a while they rotated out all the older stuff, so they wanted to keep the warband still viable, but a lot of the cards that came with those decks weren't, basically.
Yeah.
To try and mitigate some of those like crazy combos and stuff. And I think the thing I didn't like about it was that the core game actually changed every year. Like they kept bolting on sort of thematic rules mechanics to the base game. The base game was mostly the same, but then you got like Prey and Hunter that you could, depending on your warbands, these new warbands had these new mechanics, and which sort of prioritized you to get the new decks, and they sort of kept doing that every year. So you're constantly sort of relearning the rules, rather than it just being a stable core game, and it really didn't matter which box you had, but the box gave you, new tiles and new warbands. I think if they had done that, it probably would have been better for the overall health of the game. But because of the state of where they are, this is why they've given you, like, effectively, this is Warhammer Underworld 2. This is like a complete redo and a reset. Everything's being indexed for, 40k terminology for this new game.
I mean, here's the thing, though. I think the problem is that, people are creatures of habit, and ultimately you have learned behavior with the way that Games Workshop tackled this particular range. And, in many respects, I kind of feel like this whole kind of iterative updating with addition rules is completely pointless with this game. And I actually really feel like, which is really, really nice if they kind of just adopted a very baseline set of core mechanics and then use the card systems to layer in rules that just kind of let you play things differently via the cards. And then at least then if, say, for example, I turned up with my vanilla day one Stormcast gang with my vanilla day one Stormcast deck, I'd be like, yeah, that's what I got, and I can still play you.
It should still be viable.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and that to me is how it should have worked. The fact that what they're basically telling me is it's like every other GW system, but just with an even more rapid release schedule, a very low level of player support outside of maybe Warhammer World. It's the only place I've ever seen it being played is Warhammer World. This is a game that just completely goes under the radar of almost everybody.
Like it did have it did have a tournament support from Games Workshop for several years.
Yeah.
Where they did, they sent them the tournament packs out with trophies and stuff to independent stores that were running those. So I assume there is a scene, but yeah, definitely.
I don't know where one is.
Scene up at Warhammer World.
Well, I do know where one is. Warhammer World. Warhammer World's the place. But for me, I love the miniatures, like really great miniatures consistently. Sometimes they fall slightly south of the mark, but a lot of the time they hit it bang on, if not overperform. That's really what I use it for. I use it to just buy really cool miniatures that I can kind of sprinkle into armies that I already own. So, for me, it's like, is it a Gloomspite Git, or Iron Jaws, or Cruel Boys, or Skaven now, because I am also doing Skaven. I know, madness. It's not a very good army. It's just two of the Vermintide box sets contents as an army.
Oh, well, I could give you a third one if you wanted.
Skaventide. Well, maybe. I'll see. I don't think I need that many rats.
Yes.
But anyway, long story short is I think, as a game, I don't. The problem is I play so many different games right now. I just don't think I've got room in my heart for this at the moment, especially, as I say, because it's just No one's out there. I mean, at the end of the day, if it caught fire at the local club and people were really getting into it, sure, why not? But at the moment, especially as I already own, a few of the different, gangs, whatever they're called. But yeah, this isn't really kind of. I don't think I'm going to be going out and buying this. And by this, we're talking about Ember Gird, because they don't spell guard like guard, so I assume it's intentional that you.
It's probably to be trademarkable.
Oh, fine. So it should be Ember Guard,
or Americanized, maybe.
Maybe Americans have a U in guard, don't they?
I would have thought so, but they dropped the U from so many other things.
Maybe. Anyway, it's called Ember Guard. But basically, background story: Ember Guard used to be a nice place. Now it's not, because rats appeared and basically turned it inside out, and now it's basically a system of rubbled up, destroyed mines and craziness, where the Skaven Tide, the big explosion of rats, essentially buried the once beautiful location and is now all sorts of not very nice. So as a result, adventurers and people seeking fame and fortune go there to try and plunder it of all of its, lovely bits, which in this particular box set includes a warband, I'll use that terminology, of free Stormcast Eternals and an assortment of Skavens of all sorts of different types, which is super fun to see. So the Stormcast warband essentially takes on more of the kind of hunter sort of type of thing. I forget what that specific chamber is called, but it's the one where they've all got crossbows.
Vanguard chamber.
The Vanguard chamber, thank you. And yeah, look, I mean, I'd say 1 out of 3 of these models I like. 1 out of 3 I'm really not that keen on, and 1 out of 3 I'm relatively moot on, I would say. I'd say this is probably... It's not a slam dunk, it's fair to say, but I'm sure they're all made to a very good high technical standard and probably look a lot better in 3 dimensions. But basically, the geezer with the big crossbow and the hood, top shelf, love him, good mini. The assassin with the hood and the 2 knives, not keen on that at all. Don't think it looks very nice whatsoever. The hood looks kind of weird and I'm not really into it.
Agreed.
And the guy with the incredibly chiseled jawline, the axe and crossbow, he's fine. Don't especially like him, but don't especially dislike him. He's just fine.
Fair enough. He's probably my favourite of a lot.
Oh, okay.
I would say it was interesting when I first saw it. I was like, "Oh, are these like the first ed sculpts?" And then I had to look again and go, "Oh no, they are the redos of the designs." But there's a lot of design cues that hark back to the old style Stormcast, like the sort of Tarouges that they've got around hanging
you
down.
You love that word, don't you? You like throwing
I
out.
do. I love the Tarouges. Spelled with PT if you're trying to look it up. That style is the old style Stormcast. The legs have these sort of like inset bits on the side, which I think is similar to the old ones, but also similar to some of the Dragon Riders as well. There's just some like, and he feels quite chunky as well, more so than some of the newer stuff, which gives him vibes or very reminiscent of the older editions. But I like his pose. I'm like, I could swap that crossbow out for a bolt gun, and I could swap that axe out for a chain axe, and I've do a head swap and stuff, and I've pretty much got another Thunder Warrior there. So I like him for that reason, for the conversion potential. The lady who's the assassin with the 2 daggers, I think she's sort of terrible. She's got this really weird pose with her legs that it looks like she's slightly on tiptoes on one leg, and then she's sort of leaning forwards and over. But yeah, the sort of the V shape with the legs just looks odd in this camera angle. And then the eyes.
I don't understand why her hair is moving in one direction and her cloak is moving in another. Like normally in just simple design, like if you've got a sort of
interesting, yeah.
Like you kind of want those fabric hair elements to be moving with the.
You're right, because if she's twisting around, the hair should be going in the opposite direction, you would assume, unless she's twisting her body and then whipping her head around in the opposite direction. Which is
totally... I acknowledge that there is a set of circumstances where this is totally viable, but just from a design perspective, it just creates a weird sort of sense of motion, because obviously you're capturing a moment in the sculpt, and to me it just seems very odd, like that you would have those elements competing with each other. Even with the way that like the arm is kind of like the right arm is kind of tilted inwards and the left arm is the one extended, you'd almost sort of want it to be the other way around again, just to sort of, I don't know, just sort of have that kind of consistent direction to the movement of it.
It just, the top half doesn't really match the bottom half, and I think it's just the leg position for me that really throws it off. And she's got very tiny beady eyes in terms of the way they paint. You can paint her with
big ridiculous clown eyes if you want, you can go mad.
I mean, that's my style, I think. So I can't, I think that's because I struggle with eyes completely. So I mean, I don't want to knock the person that designed it, but that's my least favourite one if I had to pick one.
Yeah.
And then the last guy, the dude with a big crossbow, again, I just see some conversion potential, although but he's got very broad shoulders, and it's like overly, it feels like the fur, it's almost like fur pauldron shoulder pads, and it's like hiding too much of the model.
Yeah,
I think, and just seems very square and flat on the shoulders. I mean,
it would have made sense for maybe the left shoulder where he's kind of aiming. It would have made sense for the left shoulder to have been kind of like, the cloak to have, not been over the shoulder pad, just to give you a bit more of the form.
Yes, yeah. Although I sort of suspect maybe some of this is because these are push fit, like easy build models, that a lot of it is the limitations of that maybe. And I just, when I look at these models, you can sort of see the push fit elements to it.
I agree.
It seems a bit of a silly descriptor, but I can see why it's done in this way, maybe.
Also, can I just say as well, the thing I hate the most about these miniatures, and the thing that drives me crazy looking at them, is I have no idea why the painter has given them shoes. I don't understand what that's about.
The black shoes. Yeah. Oh, do you know what? I didn't really clock that, but
it's the most. It's like they've all got like brogues on or whatever it is. It's just like they've got like, it just takes me, because normally those feet would just be gold like the rest of the miniature, because they'd be armored.
You're right. Oh well, maybe it's because they need to run quicker.
Well, they got the leather booties on. It looks ridiculous to me. Like,
I don't mind the soles being black, but there is like the pointy bit should be still painted as armor, I would assume.
Yeah. It just looks like they're, out on the town, they're going out clubbing or whatever it is, they want to get into the best place, and they have to wear their, it's just, that is the thing I like. And it's weird, because it really does. I genuinely think that this entire range of miniatures, these 3 miniatures, would have looked less bad had they just had gold feet. I can understand that. And to me, there are elements, and I guess the shoes and the Tarouges, to name them once again, are the two things, and to an extent the lower legs, because they've changed the sculpting on that slightly, that makes it inconsistent. So, for example, the Liberators are like the quintessential new Stormcast style, which started off with the Vindicators, I believe. Or was it Vigilers? I always get those two mixed up. Anyway, that was like the first new style that they did. And pretty much every unit has like something different about them. So maybe instead of, because those guys had the scale mail sort of skirts. Yeah.
And instead these have got the sort of leather Tarouges that weirdly almost look like a skirt instead. So they've got these little things that they change every single time. And personally, that bugs me, because I like my army to be a little bit more consistent with, maybe like, cool, you've got capes on, that's the difference. But when it's like, no, actually the greaves on your legs are actually different from unit to unit, because I guess they just want a bit of difference, or, certain bits of the arm have changed in style. Yeah, that personally bugs me for whatever reason.
No,
so I just make it the same throughout.
I think it's a totally fair concern. I mean, conversely, the Skaven are a ragtag bunch of misfits. Everything about them is different. They look a complete mess, but regardless of that...
That's what you want from them,
mate. They're stunning. Like, what is it? Like, literally, I swear to God, like, there's a couple of misses with the Skaven range, for sure, but on the whole, it's absolutely stunning. Like, every single Skaven miniature that we've been getting of late is utterly immense, and like, again, like, I'm not looking at this thinking, oh, I'm going to want to, use this warband, this group of individuals as like what they are. Obviously, if I can and, am able to use them as a cohesive unit in games of AOS4 for the foreseeable, great. But I mean, for me, it's just like, that warlock character with the big rifle, really amazing. Absolutely want one of those in the collection. Again, just to give me an alternate sculpt. So if I am running 2 warlock engineers, I can, have this one alongside the one that came with Skaven Tide. The wheel geezer, the Doom wheel geezer, not the Doom wheel specifically, but the wheel geezer, again, will go in beautifully with that new unit that they've done of the little wheels. Absolutely stupendous, utterly gorgeous, like just the ferocity of the expression, the general kind of joy in, I can only presume moving along at breakneck speeds, firing lightning at people. You can really kind of see that in the expression and and again, even like the paint job, the kind of rusty, horrible kind of rustic details of the machine with the organic qualities of the actual Skaven within it, just exceptional. And then the 2 other geezers, you always got like a kind of flailed one-esque kind of...
Yeah, flayed one Edward Scissorhands rat.
And it's just amazing. And then, and the other geezer is like the sort of plague monkey.
Bombardier style. Yeah. Plague one guy with the bombs. Yeah, he's very cool.
I love it.
And you've got the tiny rat bomb as well.
Yeah, which is my least favourite bit of it, because Games Workshop seem to actually... I get to the point where I'm like, I get it now. You keep giving us little weird miniatures, but...
I completely agree, and we'll talk about that when we get to Kill Team, but this guy actually feels like it makes sense. Like, I can imagine totally the rats doing this, and weirdly, it just reminds me of Necromunda, because they had rat bombs in that as well with the Cawdor gang.
Cawdor,
yeah, they had them there as well. So, yeah, it feels appropriate for the Skaven that they would strap a bomb to a rat and send it skittering off.
I suppose so. But no, I like conversely, like that Skaven team, it will be mine. Oh yes, it will be mine. But I won't be buying it in the box set. I will just be either eBaying it, asking one of our listeners if they've got one extra to send it to me. Obviously for money. I'm not expecting you to send it to me for free, or purchasing it as an independent individual purchase once it becomes its own thing in its own box. Because that's great.
Yeah, same. I want to get 2 of the 3 Stormcast as additions to my Thunder Warriors. Not that I always need new base models, because I've probably got tons already, but every time I see one that looks good, I'm like, I'm just going to get it. I don't know what it'll be, but I'll make it something.
You're probably giving up on that Thunder Warrior project for the foreseeable, mate. You need to get over this addiction now. This was the old you. You've lived that life now for 3 years. You can move on.
I know, but I'm still hooked. I need to maybe have a deep cleanse or something.
I think you do, mate. I think you do. I think you need to let go. You got to move on to a new project. Let that one die.
I am. It's the Thunder Warrior Horus Heresy project. So I still need another 1,000 points. So I'm at 2,000 points of Heresy. I need the last 1,000 points, basically.
Well, fair. Well, there you go, Phil. So clearly what you have to do is buy this box set and give me the Skaven. There we are. It's decided.
But then I'm stuck with all the other bits. Although saying that, I do actually have, lots of old war bands and stuff like that. So, it's not necessarily a bad idea. Will I ever get to play it? No. Probably not. So for that reason, I don't really want it. And then if I can talk briefly about not the game.
No, Phil, you're not allowed. Only I may talk.
No, I was just going to say, so there's a few things that they've changed about it, which I sort of like one aspect of it and not the other. So one of them is the artwork. And so the character cards for your players used to be artwork, and that's now the models, which is sort of much more reminiscent, I think, of actual Warcry. That makes perfect sense. So actually, you've got these cards, you can see what the models are, makes it a lot clearer to your opponent. What everything is, especially if you've, maybe, I don't know, because actually if you've kit bashed it, it doesn't line up, but at least they get an idea of what it should have looked like. So I like that. And now you actually get a big card to represent the sort of play style and character of your warband. So it's trying to divorce the play style of the warband from the cards for the deck building, because actually now it seems like you just get prescribed themes of deck of cards that you play. So you can have an aggro, you can have a more like passive objective holder one, a more defensive style one, and that's all cool. That's all great, and the theme is now on a card, which again feels a bit more Warcry-esque. But a bit I don't like is that the actual decks themselves used to have really beautiful custom artwork on all of them. So every kind of card you're playing that's meant to be representing an action, like maybe you're chopping someone's head off, you're doing a charge and you're crashing into them, you're doing a shield bash. All of these things were like sort of cards that were beautifully illustrated to visualize what's happening almost in your mind's eye of your models. And now they've just replaced them with photography. And it's like, I sort of understand why. And to me, it feels a bit like a cost-cutting save measure. One, because it's probably a lot easier to photograph minis than it is to draw them, to illustrate them. I imagine it's a lot more time consuming, but also they've probably got not only can they do new photography, but they've also got a bank of old photography that they could also use as a resource built up. But I just feel like it's a real disappointment. And looking online, it feels like everyone else feels the same about it, and that the art is such a visceral, emotive part of a hobby. Both in when we talk about codexes, we always talk about the artwork. I think people reminisce about old editions, like when we talk about our childhood, and we talk about artists like Mark Gibbons and people like that. There's always pieces of art that stay with us, and things like Mordheim almost. I mean, it was obviously a good game, but it was almost won over by the population purely based on the sort of the style of the art within the book itself.
Yeah, that was like the grim darkification of Warhammer, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I sort of feel like they're really missing a trick by not including that anymore in this game.
Problem is with there is still some art is expensive and timely to make, whereas
I totally get that.
But I agree with you. But again, it's kind of where the two. This is the problem, isn't it? It's where the two worlds collide. It's why we've seen so much duplication in cover art in 10th edition 40k. It's why there's so few new art images in codexes. I mean, Codex Imperial Agents, credit where credit's due, real outlier. Loads of really cool art in that book. Which
like new art as well.
Yeah. Same thing with the Skaven Codex as well. Oh, not Codex, sorry. War Scroll Battletome. Really great. But you look at things, and again, I'm basically parroting a conversation that took place between Dr. Blacksall and the Bard on a podcast they put out recently talking about Old World. But you look at things like Old World, all the artwork that they're using is just old artwork, and then they've basically commissioned like a few new pieces. But that's true of all things at the minute. It's just sad, though, because it robs the world of something. I'm really grateful, by the way, and I did say this in a comment in response to a comment on our YouTube channel. I am really grateful, though, that we're out of that period of around 8th edition where all the new artwork commissioned had to include facsimiles of the miniatures. Do you remember that, where they literally, if it's not a miniature, like terrain, any of it, we won't do an illustration of it because we want.
Right, okay.
Do you remember that, where like literally even all the things in the background had to be like terrain sets that they sold?
Vaguely, although I do often remember, I think it was even in 8th edition where you would see an illustration and something did look like a new model, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, what's this? Is it a new model? Is it a kit coming out?" And often it wasn't.
Yeah.
Although I think the exception was the Venom Crawler was actually in a piece of artwork, like tucked away in the background. But quite often, I remember one because it was a Skitarii one, and I thought there was this new Walker thing behind the Skitarii model, but it was actually a Dune Strider, but it was just scaled completely wrong, and I guess the artist took some liberties, like because there often is artistic license in these things, and it just made it look a bit more like a new model. So I was like, oh wow, what's this? Because it's clearly nothing that exists. And I remember again when the Rogal Dawn came out, the piece of art that accompanied it was like way cooler and sort of better proportion than the actual model ended up being. So I guess when they do like for like models, it has positive and negatives with them. And yeah, it's sometimes nicer when they give us something new that isn't just a representation of a model in the game.
Yeah, I think it's the better thing. I think it's better now that we're in a world where people aren't necessarily looking at the artwork and thinking to themselves, oh, that's going to be a miniature. They actually now have got to a point where they accept that. I mean, obviously, sometimes it is the case, but a lot of the time it's like, no, this is just an expression or an idea or something.
Yeah, because do you remember? I think there was a Space Marine with I want to say it was either a power sword or a chain sword and a shield. And I think this was after Blade Guard had come out, but it wasn't in Blade Guard armor. It was just like a regular guy.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, what's this going to be? Is it going to be like Assault Intercessors? And so, no, it was just a cool photo of a cool model that wasn't ever a model.
Yeah, which I think is where it should be. I think the art should be, evoke ideas and create.
Yeah, give you ideas to kit bash or convert and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I'm glad we're out of that weird, everything's very literal stage. But it is a shame, though, because they obviously have so much stuff being released that they obviously just have to go for efficiency, and photography is that. But it is a shame because it robs, and it cheapens the product because it feels cash grabby. It feels unfinished. It doesn't feel like it was made to be its own thing. It just feels like it's there to siphon money out of people and to keep feeding the machine. Which it is ultimately, at the end of the day, there's no need for this new Underworld rule set. They could have just, carried on supporting things or could have done a bit more of a thorough job with it. But they probably also, as well, I will say this as well, last thing, they probably got a very small budget on this project as well because it probably doesn't generate huge amounts of income for them. So it's probably one of those ones where...
I don't know about that. I suspect it does. But yeah, because everyone's buying all the models for their AOS armies.
No, AOS is not as... I mean, it's becoming more popular, although that's a very subjective statement, and I'm not really even sure what I'm basing that on other than my own personal biases. But ultimately, AOS is still not crazy.
No, I know. I mean, I've said this since first edition, the first Shadespire had come out, basically, that a game like this on hexes with really cool models for 40k would be amazing.
Oh, God, yeah.
I still think it is. Because basically this isn't Kill Team. I still think Kill Team's quite a big proposition for people to buy into, whereas this, you buy one box, is instantly playable with your friends, it's much more affordable, you don't have to build loads of terrain. This could be Blackstone Fortress, a squad of guardsmen versus some Chaos Cultists or something like that. You could constantly do those cool Kill Team sculpts. But obviously they're sort of doing that also with, Kill Team and Warcry as well for getting stuff out. But yeah, I think the 40k version of this would do well.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree at all. It's wild in a way that there isn't a 40k version of it, but maybe one day. So that was an okay reveal. The Skaven, 10 out of 10, love them. The Stormcast, whatever, and the overall kind of proposition, fine if you like that kind of thing. I'm sure that's the kind of thing you like, but for me, I'll pick up the Skaven and move on with my life. Next on the lineup was another AOS-themed item in the form of the Slaves to Darkness battle tone. So they didn't put a date on this, did they? But they did say it's coming before the end of the year.
This year, I think is all they've said.
Yeah, so coming before the end of the year. We've got the cover art of the battle tone. So we've got ourselves a Chosen on the cover alongside some other Chosen, the most popular and most awesome unit within the ranks of the Slaves to Darkness. The Chosen on the cover, it's an interesting image. It's very kind of flat and very kind of militaristic. I don't necessarily know how much it conveys some of the more kind of chaosy ideas. It's
he's got horns growing out of his face, Dan.
Yeah, but it doesn't have any of the. It just doesn't have the weight or the menace or the presence of other things that I've seen representing chaos in the past. It's sort of, I don't know, whether it's the posture of the character or the overall kind of, obviously, look, he's got skulls around him and marks of chaos and all that kind of stuff. But it just, I don't know, there's something's not coming through.
Well, I mean, he's not got, a crab hand for an arm or anything. Well, he could be more mutated but I think overall, I actually really like the pose that he's in. He's sort of looming over you. It's what I've always described as a quintessential Codex or Battle Tome artwork. Single figure up front with a couple of dudes in the background. The one thing that I think you're right that makes it look flat is that the background is sort of just washed out with this orange color. And normally they sort of fade the background artwork with a sort of background color, but you can still see the background detail to an extent, and at least in maybe this is just an issue with the preview image. It doesn't seem like there is any. It's just you can just about make out the icon, the Chaos icon. That's about it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. In the long sort of history of like Warriors of Chaos and now Slaves to Darkness type cover images, they've always kind of, certainly with Warriors of Chaos, they've always sort of centered around this kind of singular Chaos Lord character. And the thing I've always really liked about that the way they've posed that character is there's always this kind of stillness to them, and that alludes to a kind of threat of violence that isn't kind of, that isn't kind of happening yet, but there's this kind of menacing presence and this unsettling nature to the character. I mean, yeah, fair enough. There are also, like, if you go back for like far enough, there's imagery of like, characters mounted on horses and all other bits and pieces, right? But like for me, yeah, I don't know. With this cover, it's just, I don't know. Something isn't. And again, no disrespect to the artist who's done this. It's a very competently constructed piece of art in terms of some of the technical aspects. But yeah, it's not really an evocative or compelling cover that really draws me in. I just sort of go, it's evident what it is. I can look at it and identify it as being imagery associated with the Slaves to Darkness. But yeah, it's not, something isn't there for me.
Fair enough. I think if I, and I don't want to say this as a criticism because I actually like the style, but it is a very plain piece of armor. Not normally a lot of, especially the old artwork of Chaos, it's like, it's just jam-packed full of detail, like loads of ruins or inscribed little bits on it, or just, I don't know, just illustrated blackline pencil sort of swirls and tentacles and all sorts of things on the armor that gives it a bit more life. Whereas this is very plain and basic, which I actually personally quite like. But maybe that's what you're picking up on, potentially.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's more the pose than just the character.
Is it because he's not wearing a helmet? Because normally Chaos Warriors...
I don't mind the lack of helmet necessarily. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way that he's got the head. It's just, I don't know. Nothing about it is like, it just doesn't, it's just not really working for me. They've also announced that they're going to be doing a new Sorcerer Mini, which is great because the Sorcerer Minis that they've had previously have all been from the old Warriors of Chaos range and so the old Fantasy range. And they did have a Slaves to Darkness, the Sorcerer / Wizard that came as a Warhammer Plus exclusive, and that was a really cool miniature. That was the second year of Warhammer Plus.
Wasn't that the lady with the familiars?
Yes, yeah. That was.
I remember getting that one because the familiars were just too cool.
It's a really great sculpt, but it's not very in line with some of the kind of, sort of aesthetic of the kind of Warriors of Chaos as they become now, or rather the Slaves to Darkness as they become now. I think these miniatures, or this miniature, really kind of does a better job of kind of getting across the sort of weight and more kind of ferocity, if you will, of the actual kind of battle wizard that they represent. That being said, they kind of scored a bit of an own goal with this because they also showed off the Warhammer Day exclusive, limited time availability Sorcerer Lord, which is just a superior sculpt, I feel. I think,
that's the way they've got to do it though, to make you buy it.
Well, that's it. I mean, but then, I haven't really, I don't know, I hadn't seen the two side by side, I guess, at the time, but like, I mean, once they revealed this, I was very happy that I'd got my order in and purchased the limited availability one because.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Well,
you don't collect them, Dan.
No, but I'm doing Slaves of Darkness with Richie.
So you did vaguely mention it. Okay, so you're doing the actual Slaves of Darkness.
Correct. Yeah, and he's doing
demons.
Zinch. Yeah, he's doing Disciples of Zinch.
Okay, so yours are, because it's a recreation of an old army, right? So you're doing effectively. I hope you're painting them blue so they at least look a little bit Thousand Suns.
That's exactly what I'm doing. They will have the Mark of Zinch, which is terrible at the moment. I'm hoping that the new Battle Tome makes Zinch good. Because at the moment they are awful.
Good again.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, anyway, let's not get into an AOS conversation just now. We can do that somewhere else. But But yeah, this Sorcerer Lord though, for what it's worth, I think he's cool. I just don't think he's as good as the other one. That's all it is. It's like, and again, it's a I think both of them are great. I'd probably have both of them very comfortably. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'd try and get like a head swap on. I mean, I quite like the skull one with the...
yeah, that's probably my favourite.
But it's... yeah, I think the problem is with the skull one and also the other one with the kind of almost like the executioner's mask type thing is it's very kind of generic warrior chaos as opposed to, or rather, Slaves to Darkness, whereas I'd like to sort of... I don't know, I'd like something a bit more Zinchi in there to try and convey, or alternatively something a bit more Nurgly or something a bit more Slaneshi, just to sort of get the gods represented in there if possible.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one with the skull helmet has got like the magic coming out of the staff, which feels more Zinchi than some of the others.
Yes.
If you were to go, but yeah, I see what you mean, like a mask point of view.
But I mean, again, it's a minor
head swaps are easy to do.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, I'm not going to be unfair to it for that. I think the overall kind of weight of the character, the posing of it's really good. I like a lot of what I'm seeing with it. It's just, yeah, I'm thinking maybe getting one of the. Well, I'd really like to get one of the helmets from the Disciples of Zinch. The character, I forget what he's called, but he's got the demon kind of linked to him, so it's almost like a kind of weird kind of faceless thrall that's carrying a staff, and then it comes out of the guy's armor. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, not off the top of my head.
Anyway, he's a character, and he's kind of cool. But I think actually, now that I think about the miniature, in fact, no, I've just managed to find him. Yes, no, he's got the hand of the demon that's kind of coming out of his body, sort of planted on the top of his skull, so it'd be quite difficult to work that in. All right, fine. Snip that off. Chop that all off. But yeah, overall, I'm excited that Slaves to Darkness is getting a new book. They're very powerful at the moment. They're a very good army, very well represented in the competitive game. So yeah, I'm hopeful that this addresses.
That explains why you're doing them then.
No, well, I mean, honestly, my intention is to do a bad version of that's where we're going with it. But
okay,
but we'll see. Okay. We'll see. Unless, of course, randomly Zinch ends up being amazing, in which case, whoopsie daisy. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Any thoughts on any of the Slaves to Darkness stuff, Phil?
They're kind of all right. The cover looked interesting. I know Richie plays them, and you'll be playing them, so I'm happy on your behalf.
Well, thank you, sir. You're a generous soul. Next, in terms of the reveals that they did, they actually hit us up with the Christmas box sets next, is what I've got on my list here. Is that aligned with your reality?
No, but I'm probably looking at the article and you're just looking at the URL links, right? But then my one's definitely out of order. So I've got Kill Team next, which I know wasn't true because it was the Christmas kind of Kill Team miniature that came before. But we can do the box sets because that is 40k and AOS content.
Well, yeah, because once AOS was out of the way, it was basically they did Christmas boxes, then they did Horus Heresy in the form of the Mechanicus stuff that got leaked, and then the evil Mechanicus or whatever you say there. Then they went into the Christmas holiday Thanksgiving model, and then they finished off with Kill Team. That's what I've got.
Right. Okay. Well, let's do it in that order then. That sounds right. All right.
Fine. So Christmas boxes. Woo! 40k first. We have 5 Christmas boxes for 40k. We have a Sisters one, which is a bit rubbish in my opinion. We have a Necron one, which I suppose could be good if you like Necrons, but again, doesn't really thrill me. A Tau one that looks really rubbish. It's probably not even 400 points worth of Tau these days.
It's like 4 models plus some drones.
Looks awful. The Inner Circle Task Force, which is amazing and probably the most obvious one of these that you should probably buy if you don't already own most of this stuff. And then lastly, the Imperial Knight one, which again is great value and something that really makes sense. Basically, the Imperial Knight and Dark Angel box sets make me question what the heck they were thinking for the other 3. Although, to be fair, I'll give the Necron one a pass because I don't feel like the Necron one's that bad. It's just it's just the weirdness where they're like, yeah, so you got 10 warriors. Okay, cool, 10 warriors. Whatever. A Necron Lord character man. Great. I think that's a named character, isn't it, that Necron Lord?
Ooh, I'm not sure. Maybe.
Oh, no, it's just a Necron Lord.
Necron Lord. Well, with translocation shrouds.
There we go.
Built in.
And then you got some Lich Guard, which could also be taken as the other thing that isn't Lich Guard. What's the name of the other unit Lich Guard make? The jumpy ones.
Are they not the shooty ones?
No, you can do like a jump pack unit. Basically.
Oh, Triarch Praetorians, it says.
There we go. Thank you. And the Void Dragon. The Void Dragon is cool, right? Like the Void Dragon is super cool. Love that mini. But the rest of it is just sort of like, I was just like, I don't really get it. Like, Void Dragon, great. Just buy the Void Dragon. Like, what is all this other stuff?
Here's the thing. I'm thinking I've got the box set that came with the Necrons and Space Marine. So technically I've got a bunch of Necrons. Not that I'm actually considering this, but would this be a good addition to that army? Probably.
Yeah, probably.
I think you get some Necrons. I've already got some Necrons. So do I need another 10? Maybe not, but if you want to go for a horde, fine. But I guess the Praetorians are nice elites. Another non-named character on foot, because I think you only got the the three-legged walker ones in the Ninth Ed box, Indomitus box, and then obviously you got a big monster. So yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, visually, I think it looks cool. It's probably the most interesting photo that appeals to me out of all of them. Having a big sort of central monster, I think helps make it work. But is it like a playable force?
Well, it's playable because 40k has no rules when it concerns playability, but in terms of what you can legally put down on the field. But again, I don't know for sure what the points are on these units individually. I think a Void Dragon's probably maybe 280, 300 points, say. Maybe. I'm probably gripping at straws there. The Lich Guard are probably only going to be like 120 for 5, if that. They're probably actually less than 100 points for 5, because 40k. So you're probably looking at like 600 points worth of stuff there for Necrons, which is like, imagine...
Void Dragon is 290.
See, madness. What is wrong with this game? Like, I'll tell you, that is the thing, right? And we'll talk about this other thing. We'll talk about it in the outro, everybody.
Yeah.
So if that's 290, the other stuff's probably at push. Let's say it's 400 points, it's 700. Like, imagine that. Like, it's literally like, I got my kid this Christmas box set because they're really into 40k and they really want to play and they love the Necrons, and I got them this, and it was. I don't know what these things are going to be. They're probably going to be like 150 quid. I'm going to guess like 150, 160. It's like, it's literally like that's all their Christmas money. That's all. That's the entire Christmas budget. It was either this or I don't know, something else, right? I don't know what kids like anymore. I'm too old and I don't care. But the point is like, this was their Christmas budget, and you've spent 100 and something, 50, 60 quid on your kid and given them this, and they paint it as best they can. They get excited. They work at it for like 2 months, and they turn up in the store and they want to play with their newfound friends, and they go, I got my Necron army. And they look at them and they go, yeah, where's the rest of it? It's like, this was really expensive and I spent loads of time on it and I've got a big Void Dragon. It's like, yeah, it's only 290 points. Where's the rest of it? You need 4 times this to play. It's like, God.
Well, it does feel like the Inner Circle one gives you the most points and probably like almost the most like elite units, but the most numerous of the elite units in comparison.
Just to say though, as well, right? Just to go back to it though, on the topic of that particular topic before the value proposition of those two. So as bad as Necrons are, that Sisters Crusade host, there's probably not even 300 points there.
Maybe it was. What was interesting is they sort of made a big point in the live stream about how every box set's got a big centerpiece model, and it's like that the Sisters one doesn't. Well, yeah, but there's two rhinos. Like if they had the lady on the floating podium,
yeah.
Like that would, or at least the Triumph of St. Catherine, something like that. That would be a big centerpiece model that again would fill up points, make it look visually more impressive. Instead, you just got a tiny priest dude, and did you say a penitent engine or Morse factor or both? In fact. It can be built as either. Okay, there you go. It doesn't feel like you get a lot in that one, but you got some transports, Dan. That's what you're paying for, really.
Well, indeed, you got to get those transports going. Hang on, I'm just doing the quick points on it just to see. Okay, the penitent engines are more expensive than the mortifier, so I have two of them. We've got a Repentia squad, and we've got one squad of flailed ones. And then two rhinos. Sororitas rhinos. And then I need to increase my arcoflage because they can be a 9. How many is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 minis in there. Wow. Okay. And then the Repentia squad. That's a 9-person unit of them. Okay, cool. So yeah, literally that Sisters box is free 680 without enhancements. So you basically need 3 and a bit of those to field it up. It's just, that's the thing, man. Like, that's the crazy disconnect. It's like you think about how squeezed everyone is for money these days. You think about how, like, because this is intended probably as a gifting proposition. But to me, it feels like if you're going to tell someone that they've got to spend near 200 quid, 150 quid, whatever it is, on a box of stuff, that box of stuff should get them out of the gate. Like, it should get them to 1,000 points, for God's sakes. The fact that it doesn't even get you, like, to a respectable 1K army is just utterly mad.
Oh, geez. Yeah. So I was just totting up while you were doing that, the Dark Angels one. So you got Primarch, Chaplain, 2 units of Inner Circle and 2 units of Deathwing.
Deathwing Knights.
Deathwing Knights, sorry. That comes to 1,025 points.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of points. And I assume the actual Knight box will give you something similar, because big Knight's got to be like 300 points, right?
Yeah, well, you can build it as a Crusader. That's like 450 points for the Crusader. And then each of the armigers are 140, 150-ish, I think. Maybe even 160-ish. But yeah, so like if you basically say that's 600 points worth of armigers and, between 400 and 500 points worth of Knight, you're basically looking at, like 12.
Yeah, Halverin's 140.
140. And then the Warglave's 150, right?
Hold on. Can it build both of them?
Yeah, you can build both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's multi-part, because it never used to be. Because I think I had this box set like 5 odd years ago when it was, I'm sure it was 1 big Knight, I think 2 Armigers and 2 Halverins, but they were like separate kits. It's 150 for the Warglaves.
Yeah, so
300 for 2. So 600.
Yeah. So you're looking at 1,100, 1,150, throwing some enhancements. Yeah. Basically, the Knight, this is the thing, the Knight makes absolute sense. Get that. The Inner Circle makes absolute sense if you don't own all this Dark Angel stuff already.
Although, my criticism of this is, didn't you buy the box set that originally came out with Rogel Dawn? Not Dawn.
With Belial?
But no, sorry. Because didn't the Primarch come out with a bunch of rubbish old Terminators, or was that Belial?
No. So what happened was they did last year. Yeah, they did do a Deathwing set with Azrael, which was terrible, and that was him versus Vashtor.
Oh yeah. Did you get that one?
No, I did not get that one because it was evident that Terminators were being discontinued and Games Workshop were just being cheeky.
But that was a redo. That was the old models that they're giving you here now redone, right?
So they did do a Deathwing Assault box that was launched with the Dark Angels, and that had 1 unit of 10 Terminators, or 2 units of 5 Terminators and 1 unit of Deathwing Knights and Belial and the Codex and the cards, and that was like 130 quid or something. Obviously, this you're not getting the Codex and the cards. You're also getting the Inner Circle Knights, Inner Circle Companions. That have been pretty terrible. They are better now, but they are still... I don't really rate the sculpts, and I don't really understand what the point of them is, because they have at least got to a point now where there's a reason why you might consider them over Blade Guard. They're the same points as Blade Guard. But to me, I'd probably just sculpt them and say to my opponent they're Blade Guard most of the time. But then, I don't know. I'm really not that into the Inner Circle Companion kit. Except for the banner guy. The banner guy is chef kiss, but the rest of it is just a bit like, God.
I like the visual look of this army. Like, if you are wanting to start Dark Angels,
this is it.
Because even if you go, being a companions, in circle companions aren't great, or you don't necessarily like the look of them, but they do still feel quite quintessential Dark Angels, even though they're like a new thing.
Yeah.
And obviously you're getting your Primarch, Mr. Lionel Johnson, and you got a bunch of cool Terminators.
Yeah.
Which I think, when they first came out, I was like, some of the bits I don't like, but the guys on the left next to the Chaplain and the Chaplain all look great. I think, maybe it's the hooded and the bare-headed ones I don't like, but the ones with the traditional helmets on look great.
Yeah.
I think they look cool.
I also have a frustration with the fluff that they created around the Inner Circle Companions.
I'm aware.
But
we don't need to start that.
No, exactly. Don't take me down that rabbit hole once again. But that's the thing, right? Like, that's the only thing that I would say that sort of weirds me out about it. But overall, like, for me, like, by all means, I encourage you, buy the Knight box, buy the Inner Circle, the Dark Angel box. But I'm just looking at the costs of the Tau box and even trying to get my head around that at the minute. So,
because how much did you say many points was the Sisters one?
600.
Oh, jeez. Here's the thing. I think Sisters also just falls into that trap. Like, Genestealer Cult is a very expensive army, and you need to buy a lot of models. So, whereas the other two that we've looked at, Knights and Terminators, are very elite. So you can afford to get your more bang for your bucks in terms of points and your models. And that sort of is inherent in just the way the game works, unfortunately. It's a bit of a shame that you're not getting, let's say, 1,000 points of Sisters.
The Tau one's worse, though. So the Tau one's 525 points.
Oh, man. I mean, it's just 4 guys.
Yeah.
I mean, if one of them was like the Supremacy suit that was like not the Forge World one, but the sort of the Lord of War Plastic Games Workshop one, and then you had a bunch of little guys, that would make more sense, because that would almost be comparable to the Imperial Knights Battle Force box. Instead, it's just a Riptide, a Ghost Kill, and 2 broadsides, right? And if it was like 4 or maybe 6 broadsides, that would feel like a squad.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's weird.
Well, I remember there was a Tau Christmas box set. I think it might have been the 2019 box, or it was like 2017, but it was literally, I remember it was like a Riptide and like 6 broadside battle suits or something crazy like that. Or maybe I'm getting that wrong. Anyway, but like, there have been definitely great Tau boxes in the past. This is not it. And I think, again, my overarching frustration, as I keep coming back to, is the idea of, if you bought this as a present for someone to help, someone who's just getting into the hobby, and you want to support them on that journey. Like, fine if you get the Knights, and fine if you get the Dark Angels, but that person really loves Necrons. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, it just feels a bit wild, because, like, but all the Christmas boxes of the past, I can't remember what last year's were, but in fact, last year's were good. We had the Space Marine one that was pretty decent. We had, admittedly, it was a lot of Outriders and Assault Intercessors with jump packs, but that was good. these just feel like, for the most part, you're like, oh god, it's just.
They feel a lot smaller in terms of the numbers, albeit, as I was saying before, I'm pretty sure the Knights one is the same size as the. Actually, the one I got was the Apocalypse box, so that I don't think was even a Christmas box.
Yeah. You're right. Yes, they did really good Apocalypse boxes, didn't they?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because that's the one I picked up with the Knights. God, that was so many years ago, and I've still not built my Knights.
The 2018 Apocalypse box. Yeah, this was it. So the Tau one, so the 2018 Tau Apocalypse box was 1, 2, 3, so 6 crisis suits, 1 Riptide, and 1 of the commanders. And I, if I remember correctly, it was only like £100 or something. Because that's the thing, like that's going to be the thing that really makes or break this is the price of it. But I would have guessed it would be coming in at somewhere around the 150 to 200 mark. But I doubt they go to 200, so I guess it'll be like 150. But yeah, it's just a lot, man. It's a lot of money. It just brings into focus how wildly bloated playing 40k is now and how much stuff you need. Like when you basically can look at 4 big mech monsters for Tau and basically say, yes, 500 points. It's just like, what is going on? But again, we'll talk about some of that.
I was going to say, so yeah, the Apocalypse one for the Knights was the not Castellan. Was it Castellan? Yeah, the really large Knights variants, but only 2 of the smaller ones.
Yeah. So
yeah, the Castellan / Valiant.
Moving on to the AOS ones, we've got 4 boxes for AOS. So we've got the Cities of Sigmar. We've got the Flesh Eater Court, which is kind of cool, except for the fact they seem to have used a lot of the old ghoul miniatures. Or are those new ghoul miniatures? Not ghoul, sorry. The bat ones and the things. Those are oldish, aren't they?
Oh, the giant bat ones, I think, are slightly... Yeah, I think they are old, I believe. But everything else is new.
Fair. The Iron Jaws one, which is all of the new stuff that they released for the Iron Jaws last year, so basically old the newer kits of them, and then also the Magakin of Nurgle.
I'm looking at the Magakin one. Who are these like little cultist guys?
That's one of their
it's the war bands, isn't it?
It's one of the Warcry war bands, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I just think the way they've painted them up to match, I'm like, oh wow. That's cool.
Really nice. I think there's a thing, right? I mean, again, not to kind of get too into the weeds on it, but like, you know, looking at these, I can probably do the points tot up on this because the cheapest of these may be Cities of Sigmar, which is intriguing because Cities of Sigmar is one of the more numerous miniature counts that we see there. But if I go Grand Alliance Order, Cities of Sigmar, I'll just say 1,000 points, Doorbringer, test. Create army, so add a hero. What have we even got in this thing? I'm really so unfamiliar with the Cities of Sigmar.
Hold on, I'll read it out to you. So you get... no, it's not in order. So you get 3 Guild Fusiliers, you get 10 of them. An Iron World Great Cannon. You get a Fusil Major on Ogre Warhawk.
Oh, hang on. Okay, I can put that in. Fusil Major on thingy thing, and then I can add a unit, which is 3 Guild Fusiliers, you said, yeah?
Yeah, 10 of them.
Okay.
Iron World Great Cannon, if you can add that in.
I will see if I can. Iron World Great Cannon, yeah, I can add that.
There's a 3 Guild Marshal and Relic Envoy.
3 Guild Marshal and Relic Envoy, yeah, got that.
3 Guild Command Corps.
3 Guild Command Corps, yep.
3 Guild Cavalier Thunder.
3 Guild
sorry, just Cavaliers.
Yeah, got that.
Thunder. That's have you done the Ogre Warhawk? Warhawk?
Ogre Warhawk. Yep.
That's the Fusil Major. Yeah, so you got overall 10 3 Guild Fusiliers, Iron World Great Cannon, Fusil Major on an Ogre Warhawk, 5 3 Guild Cavaliers, 3 Guild Marshal, Relic Envoy, 3 Guild Command Corps. So I don't know if Relic Envoy is a character or
Relic Envoy, it's a unit that goes with them. The 3 Guild Command Corps. Again, I'm not super familiar with all of this, and we may have missed something. But Broad strokes.
I think that's it.
Broad strokes, assuming we've not missed anything on there, that's 920 points for all those minis.
Okay, yeah. But it's just a relatively low point game.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, again, the Iron Jaws, just looking at it, I can tell you in terms of the Ard boys, you're looking at 380 to 360 points. Well, 380, I think. 360 points of Ard boys. The Ragers, depending on what you build them as, will be close to 300 points, give or take. I think they're like 140 each. And then the big war boss on Pigman is like 320-ish. So, or maybe even 300. So they're actually relatively smaller in points there. No idea on the Magic, but I think that's the thing, man. Like, I think, I think in neither instance you're getting necessarily the best value proposition out of these necessarily, but at the same time, like AOS these boxes are probably going to be more consistently close to halfway to 2,000 points if that's your end goal.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you get and same with the 40k ones, they did point out like they work with the combat patrols or the spearhead boxes for AOS, and then you've got. So if you do that, that's probably 3/4 of your way to an army, and then you've just got your last thing to do.
Yeah, and I think that's it, right? Like, I mean, again, in terms of these boxes. I mean, I think the Cities of Sigmar is great just because Cities of Sigmar are great. I love them. I think they're just a really awesome range. And again, they're very numerous. They're a very numerous army in Age of Sigmar terms. So you get quite a lot of minis for your points. Not as many as you get in a 40k game, but you get quite a lot. Love the Flesh Eater Courts. Big fan of those. Although, again, 6 of the miniatures that they've included are probably some of the weaker ones within the range, but you've definitely got the amazing new cavalry. You've got that geezer with the intestines on his head as if it's like a judge's wig.
A wig, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I sort of wish you got the king with them, just so you had a big centerpiece model.
Yeah, that would have been great. But I understand why they've not given you that. Iron Jaws are cool. I love Iron Jaws, obviously. This is all the stuff that I don't take. If you want to work out whether this is good or not suggesting that I know definitively what's good in Iron Jaws, but not one of these units is in my current army.
Really?
Yeah, not one of them.
I thought you did all the guys on foot with the Ard boys.
I'd say I've mixed it up since some more.
Oh, you changed it now. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So not one of these units is in my current army that I'm planning on taking in November.
Oh, I get it. Okay, well, I assume I'll see it on the weekend because we're meant to be gaming.
Oh, of course we are. Yeah. No, when we go to Bad Moon, you'll see it.
Yeah.
You'll see it.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
And Magakin, sitting around the bottom of the tier table. I love that Lord on Mount. I think it's one of the greatest miniatures GW does. I think it's just stunning. I forget what it's called. I mean, obviously don't love it that much, but it's a great sculpt and I'm a big fan of it. That war,
the Harbinger of Decay.
Oh, it's so cool.
That's it. Very cool.
That warband looks great. The Blight, not Blight Lords. What are they called? The Plague Kings or whatever they are. Those geezers look great.
Yeah, Puskor Blight Lords.
Blight Lords. That's it. Fine. Again, just great overall. I'd say all of this is lovely. So, and I'm hopeful that Magakin have the archetype to be good in the game. They're just not currently because their rules are a bit poo. It's not that they're terribly bad. It's just that they have obviously tried to overcompensate for some of their innate design ideas that make them really durable and as a result kind of anti-fun. So they've sort of... The problem with Magakin at the moment is they are durable, yes, but they don't really do very much output. And I think once they find that better balance, which they almost certainly will do when they get around to doing their own battle tome or more likely balance updates in the future... I think Magakin have the potential to be amazing, and they have been amazing consistently across the span of AOS. So, yeah, could be a good opportunity for you to get in on the ground floor, paint up some Magakin, and then hopefully enjoy a powerful army towards the end of 25. But yeah, no. Overall, I think I don't know. The AOS boxes, they feel more like armies. I'll give them that. Like, there's no 4 model towel nonsense here, or sort of.
True. Yeah, it feels like you're buying a force that's bigger than a combat patrol.
Yeah,
or spearhead.
Every one of these feels like sort of like it's like a collection of miniatures that makes up an army. Yeah, like really only the Dark Angel box does that in 40k.
True.
All of these are a little bit more on the numbers. Right, cool. So that was all of that noise. Next thing along in the list of things that we are talking about was technically the Horus Heresy, Legions Imperialis, Dark Mechanicus stuff, as well as obviously the fact that during the week they showed off the new Mechanicus range. I love the fact that they are continuing to support Imperialis. Me and Phil flirted with the idea of playing this. We actually purchased it, and Phil actually assembled the miniatures. I just quickly lost interest. I've seen the game being played. I've tried to get my head around it. I just don't think it's for me.
I like how you come to that conclusion after you made me buy a box.
Yeah, basically.
So annoying. Because I wasn't interested. I have this known. It came out. I was like, nope, not interested. I'm never going to get to play it. And you were like, go on, Phil. Come on, we can do it.
Yeah.
So I got it. Got invested over Christmas. Built a load of the terrain. Built the Warhound.
And it looks great, mate.
But part of me doesn't mind that because I haven't got around to building the infantry because you were like, oh, we're going to do it over like a weekend.
Well, we still could.
We're going to challenge ourselves to do it. But the bits that I've built so far are at least compatible with Adeptus Titanicus, which I still own and really want to play at some point. So, maybe one day I will get around to it. Give me your thoughts on the Dark Mechanicum, though.
I mean, it's hard to be overly excited based on these particular miniatures, but I like conceptually the idea that that's what they're doing. I think it's going to be cool that this is something that, could be introduced into full scale. I'll say full scale, but you know what I mean? Like for regular heresy.
Have you not realised, though, that the artwork that they've shown you from the book is the Horus Heresy scale model, not the Legions Imperialis scale model? So this kind of confirms, and obviously they will do it anyway, that it's coming for the regular game. And it looks amazing because the detail on that model is incredible, more so than obviously the Legions Imperialis mini.
I just don't think that's true, though. I think they've just used the tech Thrall sculpts in combination with those sculpts. I think they've just done some Photoshop stuff there.
Every photo from Legions Imperialis is predominantly, when they've done that kind of Forge World style art piece, it's always been the Heresy scaled models. It was the same when they previewed some of the stuff for Legions Imperialis, early doors, because it was the first time we saw, I think it was like the Stormblade or one of the Solar Auxilia super heavy tanks. The first photo of it was clearly the 40k one, the Horus Heresy scaled tank, which I think they still haven't actually released yet. So it's still due to come, and the detail on that artwork is way higher than
that's true.
Especially from the book. That is 100%, I would say, an actual Horus Heresy sized model.
Well, I just sort of put it down to Photoshop wizardry. But if you're right, Phil, and I'll be happy to see it. I kind of love the idea that it's really leaning into the War of the Worlds theme.
Yeah.
That
cool.
For me is the real kind of win for it. Obviously the chances of anything coming from Mars, et cetera, but
that is true, actually. I've not realised the joke of that, but you are right. Here's the thing, to me, the concept of Dark Mechanicum coming to either Legions Imperialis, Horus Heresy, or even 40k at some point is almost the biggest news, more so than the Emperor's Children preview teaser. Just getting to understand and see the visuals of Dark Mechanicum is so exciting. It's something I've wanted to see for years and years and years. It's probably been one of those armies where people go, it's probably their top army that people will go, what army would you like to see in 40k or Horus Heresy? everyone's always been saying Dark Mechanicum. So the fact that we've appreciate it's just a tease of one model, but I'm really excited for what we'll see in the future, and I hope it is not just the majority of the Adeptus Mechanicum with a couple of units thrown in. I hope there's like a whole range of Dark Mechanicum specific models that we'll see.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously in the photography they're using the Thralls, which are just standard Mechanicum. But again,
it does make sense because obviously, for the most part, especially early in the Schism of Mars, that they would just be regular guys that have just gone to the dark side. But it's the vaults of the lost vaults that they've like reopened up, where these other heresy technology monstrosities will be coming from. So hopefully there'll be more than just this one thing, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think for me, like the fact that the Specialist Games and Horus Heresy team are leading the charge on this gives me so much more. Job. Oh my god, yeah! Like this is the thing. Like if you were telling me the 40k team were doing it, I'd be like, oh, what? Like they did the Leagues of Votan? Whoopie doo. I just think like. I think the thing is like the team in Specialist Games, the team working on Heresy, they just understand and grasp and deliver stuff with so much more weight around it, so much more prestige. And that's the thing that makes me excited is the fact that this from them is an exciting proposition and will probably live up to the vision. Because again, the Mechanicum stuff they've done for Heresy so far is all stunning, like absolutely stunning. That new plastic range they've done is just immense. This great. But in terms of the context of Legion Imperialis, look, I mean, I'm sort of a bit bummed out that there's another book for it. It feels like Legion Imperialis. I understand the logic is that they lean into the heresy kind of stuff and the lore, and they want it to be more like that. But it feels like with Imperialis, it's almost like we should just be like freely available rules and.
I agree, and it's something I've sort of said several times whenever we talked about it. Is the old Heresy Black Books were sort of iconic because you got one every several years, and there was lots. Or if you got one a year, you'd be very lucky. This feels like you're getting several a year, and it's a bit of a churn, and it's just a way of them distributing the rules.
Yeah.
And I feel like once this is out the way and we get to a situation maybe where you're just getting kind of codexes as a format for Legions Imperials, where it's like, cool, I just want Dark Mechanicum. Here's my book with just all the Dark Mechanicum units in. That would be great. But I don't think they're going to do that. It is a bit of here's a campaign, here's some units, and it's so few units in each book. I think this is maybe, I want to say it's the third or maybe even fourth book since Legions Imperialis has come
lost
out.
Track of it.
There's been several now, and the game hasn't even been out a year yet, and I'm sure this is at least the third book that they've done for it so far, and it's just sort of too much. If you were really invested and this was your only game, probably not. And maybe in this book, all you're getting is Dark Mechanicum. So, you probably didn't need some of the other books which had the Space Marines in or the Solar Auxilia because they're kind of themed. So maybe that's not so bad. But it feels like it's rapidly becoming like Necromunda, where there's just like hundreds of books and they're all pretty much valid still. And it's a big entry point once the game's, imagine this game in 2 or 3 years, there'd be like 15 books out for it that you could buy.
I look at Necromunda. I look at Necromunda as a game where you buy Necromunda box sets and play the box sets. Necromunda to me is the concept of it being more than just I got this box set and it's got this versus this and that's what we're playing. Like to me, like that's Necromunda works more as like I'm buying a box, I'm playing the box. I don't care about the rest of it,
Yeah, I think with Necromunda at least you would be like, cool, we're doing campaign. What minis have you got? What minis have I got? Okay, maybe we want one book to theme the campaign in some way, or it relates to the units that you've got or the setting, like, Ashweight or Underhive, things like that.
Yeah.
That sort of makes sense. I don't think you need to go, well, I've got to own them all for the game to run. I don't think that's true at all. But it feels like potentially for Legions Imperialis, especially since it's like an army-sized game, if you've got units that spread throughout all of these books, then yeah, you kind of do, unless you went, I guess, to a third-party site that might give you the rules for free. And unfortunately, I wish Games Workshop did that. The one downside of Specialist Game Studio is there's no app support. There's no app support for Heresy, Necromunda, Blood Bowl, even though ironically Blood Bowl used to years ago when it first came out. There's no support for Legions Imperialis. I feel like these games do need some form of app support, but I feel like the community does a really good job of filling that gap.
Yeah, and again, I really like what they've been doing with Old World in terms of they just went, here's all the armies in Ravening Hordes, here's all the armies in Forces of Fantasy, boosh, there you go, that's everything. And then and we'll give you some special characters when we do the Arcane Tomes or whatever they're called. Arcane Journals, sorry.
Yeah, and they sort of acknowledge that here's all the rules, even though the models aren't out yet. But that works for a game where it's built on nostalgia and people already own collections of these armies. If you were to do that for Legions Imperialis, it would just encourage loads of people to 3D print and design.
Which they're already
the minis.
Doing, let's be honest.
Which, yes, a certain sector are, but I think it would drive more people who wouldn't do that otherwise to do it, because there's a scarcity, whereas at least there's a supply of Games Workshop official miniatures with the rules, but it does mean you're kind of getting drip-fed the model range, basically. But that's always been the problem with things like Necromunda and Blood Bowl, and I've always said once we get to the state where the majority of the armies or models are out, it will be in a much healthier state of the game for just getting into it. But if you're invested now, great, because you can just, pick up things as they go.
Yeah, that's it. Right, well, there we go. Next on the list of things is the new holiday miniature. The duo of ratlings reported to have raided the officers' mess and seemingly acquired an assortment of pies, birds and sausages alongside various ales, fruits and veg, etc. So, yeah, it is a pair of ratling snipers hanging out in a fortified location, exchanging sausages. It is a very whimsical miniature. It's obviously the first visual that we were given of the new Ratling sculpts, which are, spoilers, next to talk about after this. And, the thing with it is like, I'm not saying that you can't have fun with 40k. I think 40k, is kind of at its best when it does have those kind of nostalgic, kind of comical elements. I think there's definitely been some sculpts that have just been stupendous in terms of these kind of celebration sculpts that lean into kind of the nostalgia, but also in some of the more kind of humorous elements of it. I think the best example of it is probably the Noise Marine. I felt like the Noise Marine was still a really cool, iconic sculpt in and of itself, but the paint job really kind of spoke to the absurdity of the, kind of retro 40k aesthetic and sort of poked fun, but did so in a way that still kind of felt sort of authentic to 40k. This to me is fine, and I understand that Ratlings now are going to be more hobbity. I get that they are,
they've always been quite hobbity, haven't they?
They are essentially hobbits, right? Like that's the whole deal with them. It's just the thing was before was
or halflings.
Or halflings, yes, sorry, halflings. But the thing was before was that the old Ratling sculpts, and again, that's not representative of what you've seen for the rest of the range, so I'll be fair with it. I think this is the thing. This is just very much I think this is what it is. It's a kind of a celebration piece that's designed around sort of the holiday season. It's a fun centerpiece. They've got rules within Kill Team for it as well, so they're going to have like a special scenario where you can be playing Kill Team, and then these guys are going to be running around separate to your game of Kill Team, plundering things, and that sounds compelling. I just think I think the problem is, as always with these sorts of sculpts, is I think when you're going to subvert expectations and do weird stuff with a range, and you're gonna basically take something and alter the expectation of it, I think the biggest mistake is doing that, but also having that as the first thing people see. And I think it sets a very weird tone and it creates a very weird picture in your mind, because basically if you did something weird with a Space Marine, or you did something weird with a Tyranid or an Orc or a Goblin, they've kind of earned their sort of status, and we understand their status quo and their kind of iconic look. So when they subvert that and do something funny with it, like, the goth rocker, you kind of go, oh yeah, that's a cool, fun thing. But the thing that's actually sort of weirdly negatively impacted this to me is that, this is the first time I'm seeing a new Ratling sculpt outside of the two fellas from
Blackstone Fortress.
So to me, it's sort of like, I was just a bit like, oh, it's just sort of a bit out of the blue. The Ratling is not really, or this version of the Ratling is not yet kind of solidified in the 40k-ism. And as a result, the first impression I'm getting of it is a kind of comical model, which I do like. And I don't, begrudge its existence, but I just feel like it was a mistake to reveal this before showing the kill team. And I think it was a mistake to actually have it in the same preview. I think this should have come like a couple weeks later. It felt like it needed its own time and space, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I sort of understand, because when they first revealed this, I was like, oh, cool. And I was like, oh, but it's not like a team, it's just these two guys. It's like, oh, that's not really playable in 40k. Like, where's the team of them? Because that's, as you say, what you'd expect first. And obviously they did then reveal it afterwards. So it had an initial like, oh, odd. It's odd because obviously they're saying like it's a seasonal thing, but it's like, it's not particularly Christmassy, which is, I assume, what it's meant to be like nodding towards. But then
I think they've now gone for the more kind of generic holiday season.
Yeah, I guess so. But
people were saying it's more Thanksgiving orientated almost.
Right. Well, the theme of the food, does make it feel more Thanksgiving, and I guess, religion agnostic. I
the Emperor did do away with it, mate. There's no religion in 40k. So
no, you got Sanguinala. I mean, he's a god emperor. Of course, he's not. He tried to do away with it, but then he became it.
Yeah, well, that's it.
He became the thing he didn't like. Anyway, my boys, normally you get things like Red Gobbo, which are the seasonal minis.
Yeah,
I assume
which are great.
We still get that. And they're much more leaning into the whole Christmas joke thing. Whereas this is sort of like, it's serious enough that you could just run this as a model in 40k if you wanted to, because it's, Ratling's doing sort of hobbity things, which is sort of what you expect them to do, right? So it's not like it's a joke miniature, is my point. But the tone of it is slightly off of 40k.
Oh, yeah.
Because of all the food, but then that's also what they would do to an extent. So I think they tried to just toe the line where if you want to run this as a miniature in your army, you could do. I mean, I almost personally like the idea more that Ratlings would come in sniper squads of 2 models each.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You've got like a sniper and a spotter, and it's something I wish Warhammer or Games Workshop did more. And whenever I've conceptualized my own miniature games, I would do it where I would be like, cool, here's a horde of zombies on one big round base, but there's like 5 minis on it. And so, having things like the old heavy weapon teams where it's like 2 guys on one base, I think are cool.
Yeah,
so, in a way, this makes this incompatible with the 40k minis if you're being really pedantic about it, but most people probably wouldn't care in a casual environment, at least. So, I mean, it's a weird one. It's like, I play Guard. I should enjoy this and find it exciting, but I'm just sort of not particularly fussed by it.
Yeah,
and I can't really place a reason as to why.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? There's nothing innately wrong with it, but at the same time, it is instinctively wrong for reasons that are hard to articulate. And I think it's just, again, that kind of jovial, kind of comedic representation. I think it's because as well they're so firmly planted on the battlefield as well, right? It's not just kind of in isolation of itself. It's not like the Goth Rocker was this kind of character that you could presume wasn't on the battlefield, but was actually hosting some kind of like rock concert or whatever amongst the kind of orc wars and camps and stuff, and that sort of made sense in and of itself. Whereas this is just sort of like, I don't know.
I think they should have either lent more into the 40k-ness of it and just have them as 2 snipers and there's just food in the background, for example, or almost do away with the sniper rifles and have them around a little campsite eating the food, and then it's more like a diorama, as you say, away from the battlefield.
Yeah.
And then it makes it more of a commemorative piece, whereas this feels like it is trying to toe the line between a commemorative piece and that's really a diorama and a non-gaming piece, and it's also trying to be a gaming piece at the same time. I think with the sort of one model is actually a sniper trying to do his job in a game of 40k, whereas the other guy is like hanging out, ready to be part of a Golden Demon diorama.
I think the thing that's weird as well, though, right? Again, it's just like I don't know, like the type of sculpt that you got, the way the characters look. I don't even understand who the guy's shushing. Like I imagine he's supposed to be shushing the guy who's next to him.
Yeah, so I assume he's looking out and spotting an enemy, and then while his mate is like, "Oh, Bob, do you want a sausage?
Yeah.
It's freshly cooked," and he's like, "Shh, no, the orcs are coming, my lad."
But I think that's the thing. Like, I think, I think the biggest mistake with this one was the fact that this is the first thing we saw of the Rattlings. Because moving over to basically the biggest part of this reveal, which was the new Kill Team box set, which is called
Brutal and Cunning. Because the orcs are brutal and the Rattlings are cunning.
Absolutely. So when you actually see the sort of mainstay Rattling sculpts, they're more kind of akin, I guess, to what you would expect. Although, to what we were saying earlier, it is a real ragtag bunch amongst the Rattlings. I personally like all the sculpts. I actually quite enjoy them. I mean, the Fixer, which I kind of look at almost like a commander position, is probably the only one that's a bit weird to me because he's kind of almost got like almost sort of like Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid 4 type look to him in terms of the beret and beard and things. But like the rest of them I really like. I mean, you know, the bomber guy is amazing. I really like that sculpt, although again, it's just weird because you look at it and you go like, how does that work in 40k? Like if I put this down, I understand who cares. It's just a hodgepodge. What I hope is that this is similar to what they've done with some other kill teams, like, say, the Corsairs, where, yes, you can build them as all these elaborate, very obviously unique miniatures, but if you're using them in 40k, there's enough bits in the kit that you can just build it as a generic Rattling kit, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, that is probably my one sort of takeaway, main issue with the Rattling guys. Is like they all look cool as really individual models. They're probably a perfect kill team army or, warband because each one has its own thing. Although I would maybe say the fact that the majority of them are snipers sort of skews the game somewhat, but that's a different point entirely. But I actually really hate them as a 40k unit. It's like I want my 40k Rattlings to just be a bunch of guys with guns that are a bit more standard looking.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be so unique that if I get a second squad of them, it looks really obviously like I've got just two identical squads, because there's probably no way of easily reposing. Like the Vox guy has to be that Vox guy, unless of course, as you say, there's some like alternative builds where you can have them more standardized, which actually would negate probably my criticism that I have of it. And that's sort of my worry. I'm sort of getting a bit I almost think they need to almost be separate and be like, cool, these are great models for Kill Team, but give me a standard box of Rattlings or whatever for 40k.
Yeah.
Some units do it really well, like the Space Marine Scouts, but I think that's because they're much more like this is a box of Scouts for 40k.
Yeah.
But you can also play them in Kill Team as their own thing.
Same with the Striking Scorpions, where it literally is just they're Striking Scorpions. We just made them Kill Team.
Whereas imagine a Striking Scorpion squad, but like one of them's got a medipack, one of them's got each one's got a completely different thing. It's like, how's that going to play in the game of 40k unless you almost forget about all that equipment and just go, cool, they're just a bunch of generic guys. And my last criticism of the Rattlings is the bloody dog. I'm fed up with the dog models. It was cute the first time you did it at Games Workshop, or we got the crab in Underworlds and stuff like that. I'm just a bit bored of it now. It's like sometimes it's appropriate, great, like the bomb squigs, rat bombs. Okay, cool. That makes sense. To me, things like dogs and canines should almost be either non-existent in 40k or super rare. And it's just, I don't know, it just feels like it's a bit of a meme of itself now.
Yeah.
And as you said earlier, in regards to the underworld stuff, there's constantly a cute little character that they've got to sneak in, and it's like, I don't know, it's not very grimdark having a cute dog.
Like, no, I mean, I like the sculpt. I think I'm fine with it. I just agree with you that I'm sort of over it. It's just getting a bit old a bit quickly. I mean, I say quickly, it's been going on for a while now. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm really happy with these Ratling sculpts. I think it's a really cool collection. Yeah, I think, they've done it justice. But like you say, I think when it comes to using them in the context of 40k, I'm hopeful that there's ways that you can build them a bit more generically so as they are a bit more appropriate on that battlefield. Although by complete comparison, the Orc tank busters are truly spectacular. Like, I don't understand why it is that the team working on 40k Orcs seem to just completely get it. Like, I'm struggling to recall a bad Orc miniature that's come out lately. Like, 40k.
But the Playmobil.
Yes, that's true. Like the Masters of the Universe playset was a bit of a letdown for sure. I didn't overly love that.
Was that the Kill Rig?
Kill Rig, yeah. Although it did have nice elements, like the weird boy on the platform was really cool, and there were some nice elements to it. It just was, it was the whole of it that was just a bit let down by its overall kind of, it just looked very much like a Mattel playset, which was a bit of a letdown for it. But other than that, like, I really can't think of too much else, like.
Yeah, it's I can't think. I think this is a good set.
It's great.
Toes the line of it looks like it would be a good kill team, and technically each one could have probably a different bit of war gear. But also, if you were to run it as a 40k squad, you can be like, cool, they've all got rockets and close combat weapons. Or you go, half of them have rocket guns and the other half have close combat weapons.
Yeah.
And it's not each individual one has got its own unique ability. And yes, it's got cute little bomb squigs, but this feels completely appropriate because there's orcs and they love squigs and they love bombs.
I mean, the bomb squig has been part of the kind of like the orc.
Every unit has a bomb squig of some kind.
Yeah. Which, I mean, doesn't necessarily excuse it in line with the overall criticism, but, it looks cool. They just absolutely nailed this. This is great. And I also love the fact that they've also channeled with the Tank Buster boys, or this particular unit, the Ardboy energy. Like, the Ardboy is something that we've not really seen represented since, 5th edition? I think the last time they had Ardboy rules, they may have had Ardboys in 6th, but in fact, I don't even think Orcs had a 6th edition codex. I think it was a 7th edition codex. So they may have had Ardboys still in that, but they definitely haven't had them for a while. And, basically the Ardboys were boys, but with more armor. And these guys are really channeling that particular kind of energy. So they've got that real kind of Ardboy element to them, then combined with the Tank Busters. And they've also got a pretty good stature to them. They look sort of probably bigger than your standard Orcs, at least a little sort of standing a little taller, which again, I suppose works with regards to their almost kind of elite status. It's understandable that if you're going after big hard things, you need big hard boys. So I'm there with it. I've got a real soft spot for the Orc Rangers. I really love the AOS ones, but the 40k ones are really growing on me as well. I think consistently Orcs, they have a strong argument for being the best range in 40k, and I think this only strengthens that argument. I think every bit of it is great. I even love the fact that the Tank Buster Gunner has the over-the-shoulder missile launcher. It's like, oh
yeah,
amazing.
Old school.
Yeah,
I quite like the rocket pistol personally, and the the Breaker Boy Crusher with the sort of piston fists, because part of me is like, I could use that for my Thunderbolts in some form. Because actually, I looked. There's a great Necromunda character from the Goliath gang who's got a piston fist, and I was like, I want that for like one of my Thunder Terminators. But it was like a single character model, and it was in resin, so it was wildly expensive. Whereas I was like, this guy will be dirt cheap to get those fists out of him. So that'd be cool. And maybe in a way, the same criticisms I had do still apply to the orcs in terms of the sort of, individualistic nature of them. But I think because they're orcs by their very essence, they get away with it in terms of you can have a cohesive looking unit that is technically unique in Kill Team, but much more cohesive in terms of how it would look and play on a 40k tabletop. And maybe that's just a thing that orcs are getting away with here. And that's fine.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, look, overall, I really like it. The terrain that they're offering in this set is pretty rudimental. I mean, it's just a bit more variations on the kind of walls that they've added.
Sort of like it's like a bunker, but you're given the walls for it, so you can just make the bunker shape of your own design.
Yeah, and it'll complement what you've got already in forms of like the stuff that came with the recent Kill Team release. Those terrain sets are really good. I actually built those today and genuinely think they look great. I think they've really delivered.
It's very similar to the old Riser Ruins in terms of and it's almost got a little element of boarding actions as well.
Yeah, like there was what was that kit that they
buttresses?
What was that kit that they did that was it's in the starter set. If you buy the starter set, you get like a bunker and some walls.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
40k.
Yeah, I think it was called Frontiers. It was part of it was a battle zone. Oh, here we go. Yeah,
the bunker with the bunker with the radar dish and stuff like that.
Yeah, the Hab bunker and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's very much in that kind of vein as well, which is great. So if you've got any of those kits or you've picked up start collecting the ultimate starter set, then I think this stuff really kind of complements that as well. And yeah, they did a bunch of like 9th edition terrain. Which has since obviously been discontinued, but weirdly, that Kill Team box that they did with the Vespids and the Scions, that actually has some of that 9th edition terrain in it. The stuff that they did in the ultimate sets of the 9th edition time. That was the stuff that they painted bone and red. If you remember that.
Right? Yes. Yeah, I know. I do. Yeah, because they did I don't know if they're called Promethean pipes, but they did pipes with a sort of furnace.
Yes,
attachment to it as well.
That you can't get anymore.
Stuck together. Oh, no, shame. That was actually quite a cool one. I think Richie got a couple of sets of that because it had the sort of Battlefield in a box, like
he bought the Battlefield
with the mats and the pipes and stuff.
Yeah, because they did. Do you remember in 9th edition? This is one of those things that everyone forgets about, or I assert that everyone forgets about. Which they did they actually did the rules, didn't they, for the terrain? They actually did a data sheet or cards. Where all the terrain had its own rules. That was when they were trying to encourage people to turn up to events with their own terrain.
That was its own, like, a play style, wasn't
it?
Where all the buildings had, cards, and you could, you say, bring half to a tournament, and your opponent brings half, and then you use the cards, and then literally they all had, like, mad rules. Like, cool, this is an ammo cache, so you can all throw grenades for free or something. And, weirdly, that was one of the few rule sets that we never actually looked at.
Well, it's because it was obviously awful. Like, we were just like, no time for those. But yeah, that was all the reveals. They did also check out an animation on Warhammer Plus featuring the Death Watch. Again, it was sort of a weird one because it was sort of done in association with Namco Bandai and
but they didn't say why. They was just like, they've just done it because they like the universe so much.
Yeah, the Warhammer community post has like reminders that they've done licensing deals with Namco Bandai, and you can buy some Namco Bandai Space Marine and or minifigs, which is cool. Again, Games Workshop did also come out and confirm that they realised that they mucked up on Death Watch and that they're going to try and satisfy fans of Deathwatch. To me, it sounds like they are trying to soften the blow, or rather...
do you think they're kicking it down the hill because it's like, you'll never get a codex, but we're going to give you some match play rules for this edition just to tide you over?
Yeah, we need to get people back on side. It's an easy win. We'll basically take the indexes that we've already done, and we'll just basically make those we'll just reissue those and maybe look at the points a little bit and add nothing else to it. And then literally in the next game, they will stop caring.
I mean, maybe, yeah. Here's the thing. I think it's a great move, though. It was something we talked about in the last episode, and I thought that's what they should totally do. So it's better than nothing. And, and if you
I don't think it is better than nothing. I actually think that genuinely, I would sooner have what they've done, i.e. nothing, and know where I stand than this thing. Like, this to me is like... This is dangerous. This to me is like, all you're doing is you've taken the hit, guys. Like, you've taken it. Just take it. Like, you've done it.
There's a small chance that they will next edition go, nope, we heard you. We're going to give you a codex. Chance. Maybe you're going to get some, I don't know, models or whatever as well. Would be very optimistic. But
Deathwatch as an army... look, at the end of the day, if 3 years from now there's a new Deathwatch Codex in 11th edition, fine. I apologise to all the Deathwatch players. But here's the thing. If I were you and I was looking at this, I would not be planning... I think there's a thing. If you already own the Deathwatch army and you want to continue using it, good for you. And I'm not, suggesting that's a bad thing. But if you're looking at this and going, oh, great, I can carry on or pull the trigger on buying this elaborate Deathwatch army, just don't do that, for God's sakes. It's like, please, just...
I mean, I thought what the funny thing is the Deathwatch animation features 3 different guys in different armor. Like, one of them's a Reaver Deathwatch character, and one of them's
they were all just firstborn.
No, because the guy that jumps down is a Reaver.
Oh, the guy at the end is definitely a Reaver, you're right.
Yeah, the other two might be firstborn, yeah. But it's like, well, I guess technically you can just have Reavers as Reavers, but you can't get them in that kind of kill team style, which is what this video is sort of presenting them as. So it sort of does make sense. I mean, they at least acknowledge themselves that a whole sort of watch fortress marching out to war is extremely rare, but not unheard of. Well, much like how it used to be Custodes never left Terra, but now they were like, yeah, they are, and
it's weird.
They don't often fight in big armies, but they occasionally do, and that's why we're supporting it as a model range.
Every 40k Battlefield's got a hero of legends on it these days, so it's like whatever. It's
Primarchs everywhere. Yeah, it's
like everywhere you go, it's Gilliman turns up and Lionel Johnson's there, and.
So why not? Yeah. What's the difference? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, look, I mean, at the end of the day, great for Deathwatch people. Yeah. But
it was cool. It was good as well.
But I do say, I think here's the thing. Genuinely, I understand the short-termism of getting the potential positivity, but only if. And this would have been the thing that if I was in an internal position in Games Workshop, what I would be saying is yes. But are we going to support Deathwatch in the next edition? If the answer is no, don't do this. But then maybe...
Good point, because you're saying false expectations. Yeah. But hopefully it's made them go, well, actually, people do want this, so we are...
Well, they didn't know it in the first place, though. It's like, oh, my God. This is like when they did the... what was it? The Gathering Storm? Not the Gathering Storm, the Psychic Awakening or whatever it was, and they did, was it the Saga books? The Saga of it was the Saga books they did at the end of 8th edition, and they got to the end of it and went, oh yeah, we forgot about Harlequins. Oh yeah, we forgot about what was the other one they forgot about? They forgot about 2 of them. Drakari, wasn't it? Oh no, they did get something. Or maybe they didn't. It was like one of these weird things.
What? In the Psychic Awakening books?
No, the Saga
the end of 8th.
At the end of 8th, Sagas, yeah.
Was it Sagas?
Yeah, the Psychic Awakening was... Oh, no, Psychic Awakening...
Psychic Awakening was 8th.
You're right, and then the Sagas was...
No, there was no Sagas. Sagas was the...
Oh, yes, you're right. That was just the name of one of them was Saga of the Beast, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
But it was Psychic Awakening Saga of the Beast. Yes, sorry.
Right.
My apologies. And then the end of... Yes, anyway. But yeah, so that was the weird thing with that, where they kind of got to the end of it, and then there was a bunch of stuff they'd forgotten, and then it just... Like, Harlequins just ended up in a White Dwarf, and they were like, oh, yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it was in a White Dwarf where they got their sort of like index or extra rules.
I swear there was another one in there, but... Anyway, it doesn't matter.
I think maybe it was Death Watcher as well.
Yeah, probably.
But they'd forgotten.
Probably.
Like, that ends up being in White Dwarf.
That's it. But look, at the end of the day, great that they're coming around. They're supposedly happening before the end of the year, aren't they, this thing?
I think so.
Yeah, no, in December, that's what they're saying. My guess is basically take the old index that they had and...
spruce it up.
I don't even think you spruce it up. It's just the same.
Okay. Well, you can just do that already, I guess.
Here's the thing. Do you think they'll give them an extra detachment? Ooh.
That'd be nice. I mean, give you some options.
I doubt they will. I think they'll probably just go, it's just the index, whatever, like, move along. Although maybe, because now they've got rules in the Imperial Agents book for Captain...
Well, exactly. Will they give them to you as the free downloadable rules, or be like, if you want those guys, you've still got to just add them. You've got to buy them.
God, could you imagine? Like, talk about taking one foot out of your mouth to put the other one back in. It'd be like literally like they were like, yeah, you know, obviously the all the stuff in Agents of the Imperium, you have to buy that book for that. It's got to be like, oh my God, guys, like why? But I can see them doing it. I just think, yeah, they can't help but trip over themselves these days. Cool. That was the reveals. What an exciting time. How did you...
Wait, there was also the preview for Emperor's Children.
What a logo.
Ooh. No, well, the most important thing, coming 2025. That's cool.
Well, of course.
Because most people assume
the edition's only got one more year left in it. When is it going to come?
2026 at the very end of the edition.
Oh yeah, they'll do the classic. They'll do it like World Eaters. Enjoy these for 5 minutes.
That is exactly what I would assume, right?
Yeah.
But they're technically not this time round, unless they give it to you in that Christmas box set, so it's out as a limited edition for like sort of November time, but the actual codex release is like Jan-Feb time.
How mad is it that literally with their 3-year release cycle on major like 40k editions that we know now that literally the game is more than halfway done?
That's terrible.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's like, it's literally like, it's because basically this time next year, it's basically done. It's like, wow.
Well, here's the thing. It means you can never really get excited for an edition, but it also means if an edition's bad, you can't really fall out of the game, because by the time you do, a new one's come around and you'll be, oh, fine, 11th edition is here, I'll give it a try. But personally, I think, it should be at least 5 years cycles, I think, because then it feels like you're doing a thing. It's in the zeitgeist for a long enough period of time where you can be like, oh, remember that. And some interesting stuff to come out.
Yeah, but the problem is they release editions of 40k and make more money than when they don't, right? So,
no, I know.
I mean, if they could have it their way, I think, they'd honestly want them every 2 years if they could.
Well, just make it seasonal. Make it every year.
Every day, a new 40k.
Every day is a new edition.
What do you think they're going to do? Like, just as a closing little thought exercise, what do you think the flavour of Space Marine is going to be next edition? What do you think they're going to do to enhance the Space Marine offering?
I mean, personally, I would still like them to flesh out the Gravis range. Give us some, a Gravis Lieutenant, Gravis Chaplain, Gravis Librarian. Obviously, you've got heavy intercessors. You've got a bunch of Gravis guys on foot.
You got Gravis guys with jump packs?
You've got those as well, which are pretty cool. I like them. They're good. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we got a Devastator squad of sorts that isn't those the awful rocket guys that we got, but and kind of classic heavy weapons on over the shoulders, which would work for Gravis, I think personally. Or maybe they're like, cool, we're redoing all the vehicles like the Land Raiders and stuff like that. I don't know, really. This is obviously spitballing.
Yeah. But I think we're going to see a new intercessor kit next.
Oh, like a new and improved, or more like a kind of kill team thing with a sprue upgrade?
New and improved, in the sense of like, I think...
Ready?
Yeah, of course. Well, it's been 9 years.
10 years almost? 9 years, yeah.
So that's about when they go, yeah, those intercessor models are looking a bit janky now. Let's do a new...
They're not really. I'm sure they could do a better... I'm sure they could do a better job, but it's like most people already... Here's the thing. Everyone who owns a Space Marine army now probably already owns a ton of intercessors.
Yeah.
There'll
be... I guess more, couldn't they?
I know. I guess it's that thing with and I don't know how well they've sold, but things like the Hormagaunts or maybe the Gene Stealers for the Tyranid army, where it's like people own a ton of the old ones, and yes, the new ones are objectively better, but are they better enough that you're going to ditch your old ones? Possibly not.
Yeah, I think we'll get new intercessors because they're a bit old now. I think I think we'll see the end of the tactical squad. I think all Firstborn gone. I think the Dreadnought,
makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's all going in the next one, which again is bad, right? Because again, it's another edition of Feel Bads. It's another wave. Like again, kind of almost feel like they should have just bit the bullet in ninth and killed off everything, seeing as they'd already done it. They may as well have gone all the way, but whatever. Yeah, so the Devastator squad. The Centurions, I reckon they're on the fence.
Oh, they should just go. Yeah. I mean, I hate them.
So I think
that's my own personal take.
But I think in terms of my guess is for the box set. Obviously, like in my heart of hearts, I would love them to do Space Marines on Space Marines still, but I don't think that's coming anymore because I think they butchered the Primaris story to the point that it's not worth.
Maybe they need to redo. Do you think because personally I think, either Deathwatch or Grey Knights, because they're Space Marine adjacents, but because they're not generic Space Marines.
No, you need Space Marines. You can't
doing
Space Marines they need Space Marines, right? So I think they do a new intercessor kit, and I think they'll do a new.
They've obviously not done is it Vanguard Vets? Is that still the one that they haven't done?
Well, Vanguard
yet?
will just go, and then they'll do new Vanguard Vets. That's a good shout. Yeah,
because they've done Sternguard already, so it feels like Vanguard's the close combat version of them.
So you get new Vanguard Vets, and then you'll get and then
I want a giant dreadnought that's the Gravis dreadnought. I've been saying this for years. You've got your standard Redemptor,
and then it's got an ability where it can roll up in a ball and squash people.
I mean, maybe
the armadillo.
I want a sort of because you had what's the mini sort of Phobos style dreadnought that they did.
Oh, the Invictus Warsuit.
Yeah, so they did the Invictus Warsuit, which complemented the Phobos armor, and I feel like they still need to do the Gravis style Redemptor to complement that armor, which would basically be their equivalent of a Leviathan dreadnought, which is what they need to do, I think. Still,
they'll do a new Land Raider. There you go.
Oh, that's what I mean. I wouldn't be surprised if they redid all the old vehicles. So they give you. Here's the thing: I don't think they should, because you've got the repulsors and stuff like that, which kind of are fulfilling
but the Land Raiders are iconic, mate. Like, I think they'll do a new Land Raider. I think they'll do a new Rhino, and I think they'll do
Predators. So do you think they're just
I think Predators will go. I think Predators probably they say goodbye to those.
I just feel like they've replaced them all. Here's the thing. Actually, I think I'd much rather they got rid of all of those old classic kits. Get rid of Firstborn, get rid of Land Raiders.
I wouldn't prefer it, but I think they should do it.
No, they should get rid of them for 40k and then bring them back for what I would always call the Barab War era of 40k, which is basically 6th and 7th edition.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
time capsule. You need that time period in some form, although I suspect that will then be picked up by the specialist games, and it will be like a spin-off of Horus Heresy or something. But that time period of nostalgia and like marks of armor and vehicles for 40k when it was in that time capsule period, for the most part, bearing things like Centurions coming out, I think would be really great in like a sort of getting resculpted and modernized and in the right size and stuff like that. But it just doesn't really feel like it would fit in with current 40k.
What army do you think they would have the Space Marines facing up against in the new edition? For me, they've never, ever done a starter box set with Space Marines versus Elder. They've never done it. They've done Dark Elder. They've done Dark Elder. They've done Chaos a few times, or rather a couple of times. They've done Orcs twice. They've done Nids now twice. They've done Necrons once.
They've obviously never done Votan. And they do need more models.
Votan would be a mistake, in my opinion, because they're just too similar. And I think that's the problem with Elder, because they both look like kind of good guy kind of armies. So I feel like that's why they don't do it. But maybe Elder would be cool.
Or you do something like Corsairs, and it's more like a spin-off of Elder rather than Craft World. Maybe that's how you would get away with it. I mean, personally, I would like them to do Dark Mechanicum, because obviously
of course you would.
What Heresy does, 40k is also going to do at some point. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like that. Or Demons, or Demon adjacent, so your old Vashtor type stuff, so lots of Demon engine-y type.
Yeah, Demons would be a good shout.
Yeah, something like that would be interesting.
Yeah, I can't see it being.
Because obviously you can't do Imperial stuff if you've got Space Marines in there. It's got to be a Xenos or Chaos race, right?
Yeah, I can't see it being Orcs, and I can't see it being Nids or Krons. So Tau, maybe.
Yeah, to be fair, that seems all right. They've got models that probably could be redone. So I wouldn't be surprised. That it feels like they haven't had like a big range refresh in a while. Obviously, they've done some bits like the Breachers and the Ghost Kill and what's her name? The lady character, Farsight. That's the lady, isn't it?
No, Farsight is.
Is guy. No, it's the other lady with the. What's her name?
Oh God.
The one where she's sort of like out of the armor, isn't she?
Not Dark.
Dark Strider? Dark Side? It's something like that, isn't it?
Oh, God, What is it? So many of our listeners who are still kindly listening to us will be screaming at us, being like, it's so obviously Dark Stride, or whatever it is.
It is something like that. Hold on, I'm going to have a quick look in the app and see what will come up.
Just while you're looking at
they've done some new stuff.
I actually, out of the blue, just to say, guess what game I've bought a 2-player starter set for?
What game
have I bought a 2-player starter set? I'll give you a clue. It used to be very popular.
It's a Warhammer game.
It's a tabletop game that used to be very popular. It's not Games Workshop.
Oh, okay. Not Games Workshop. Used to be popular.
Yeah.
Has it been discontinued recently?
It has been recently acquired by another company.
Oh, God, recently acquired.
Steamforge Games bought it to give it away.
Oh, no, I've got no idea.
War Machine.
Oh, okay.
So they've got a really cool War Machine starter set for 2 players. So it's got a couple of Jacks, which are the kind of mech characters, your Warcasters, and then a couple, like a few kind of basic infantry. But just the character and the sculpts is so nice, and like the Jacks models are just so pretty.
So Dark Strider is a guy. He's a different. I think it's a guy anyway. Is a different character. We were thinking Commander Shadow Sun.
Shadow Sun. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dark Strider's the Pathfinder, isn't he?
Yeah. He's a cool model. Here's the thing. Obviously, they redid Kroot quite recently, but a lot of the Tau, like basic guys, I think could do with a bit of a redo. So maybe they would do them.
Well, there we go. War Machine, though, Phil. Do you want to paint a few little War Machine men?
I'm going to say no, but we were going to do Star Wars Legion.
I'm still working on that. I was building some of that the other day. Yeah,
you're still doing that. Okay, and also, didn't you buy the
Wild West?
What was the Wild West Gunslinger one? I'm really keen to do that as a game.
Yeah, no, I am too. To be fair, I need to get
basically, on that. I will happily potentially invest in a game, but I've got to go around your house and play it first.
Yeah.
Before committing to anything. And then, do you know what? I'll be really enthused and excited, make you buy loads, and then, like you with Legions Imperialis, be like, "No, I'm not interested now."
That's fair. That's fair.
Just to wind you up.
That's fine. I'm okay.
And I'll be like, "This is for Legions Imperialis."
But with on the topic of Legions or Star Wars Legions, we should totally get that going. Tim still owes me for those clones that he wanted. I still need to get. I need to talk to him about those. But no, my.
I was going to say, I feel like we've got on a tangent off the end of the thing. So
well, there we go. That was the reveals. They were all right.
We will continue this chat in the outro, perhaps.
Well, indeed. We'll move on to the outro or whatever we decide to do next. But until then, transitional noise. All right, all, it's the end of episode 191. Thanks very much for listening, but we've got a little bit more for you because those who are regular listeners to the pod will know this bit as the outro because that's what it's called and that's what it is. So me and Phil are going to just have a general chit-chat about whatever it is that's going on with us, which probably will extend to some of the things we alluded to talking about while going through the reveals, such as, the general state of 40k as well as obviously Kill Team. So we'll, cover off those topics. But you're right, Phil. You enjoyed the chit chat through all of the reveals.
Yes, yeah. Well, I thought they were, pretty all right. Not to be blown away. But the Emperor's Children bit at the end, that was a nice little, nice. Well, they haven't done it in such a long time, and it's the one thing that we always said: just give us a little tease at the end of every one. That's always fun. So I'm glad they did it this time.
Yeah, I think, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the Emperor's Children, whether or not they... Because, if I was in charge of the release schedule, I would probably, knowing that we've basically got Krieg or Guard, Krieg, Elder, or Eldari, followed by Knights, we know that's the Q1 schedule, I'd probably then be like, cool, and then we'll hit you with Chaos Knights, then we'll hit you with Thousand Suns, not Emperor's Children, Death Guard, then World Eaters, and then probably end the kind of season of Chaos, just to Chaos, because none of them come out yet, other than Chaos Space Marine. So
that's true. In a way, it would have made more sense that they saved Emperor's Children to next year for the last kind of or the first quarter of the year, which is the end of 10th edition, like they did with World Eaters. But maybe they've gone, well, there was a bit of backlash about, releasing a codex for a new army that was only valid for a handful of months. So maybe they pushed it forwards this time, which is, positive, and also, shakes things up a bit, getting a new army sort of in the middle of the edition rather than right at the end.
No, for sure. I'm genuinely really intrigued to see what they're going to do with Fulgrim specifically. I think, the Horus Heresy miniature they recently released for him is absolutely stunning. Very fiddly. Definitely a miniature that requires an awful lot of protection if it is that it's something that you want to transport for gaming purposes. But yeah, I'm really intrigued to imagine what the Warhammer 40,000 version of Fulgrim could appear as. So very excited to see what they do with him. I imagine it'll just be a chunkier version because that tends to be the vibe.
Yeah, I assume so. I would like there to be some storytelling notes to, what's he been up to for 10,000 years, and the model to represent that sort of evolution in the story. If he just looked similar but in a different pose and in plastic, obviously no one would mind, but that is somewhat, uninspiring. I don't want it to be radically different. I don't want them to have not looked at all at the Horus Heresy one and just gone, well, we're going to do our own thing, regardless of what that was on that mini in terms of detail. Because obviously when they talked about designing that one, they talked about some cues that they felt like they couldn't do from a lot of the artwork. So they tried to take a lot of the inspiration from the artwork that had come before it, both from, I think, the Fantasy Flight card game and previous artwork and, John Blanche's concept artwork. I think the main one was that originally I want to say he either had like a backpack on him, or it was a fleshy backpack, or sort of underneath on top of the wings, I think it was, or in between the wings, something like that, and the wings were coming out on top. And they basically were like, well, this just didn't really work, so we just removed that element. But there's still nods to a little bit, so there's these little fleshy exhausts in a few places where the backpack should have been, I think. So there would be an interesting example if the 40k team makes it more faithful to the artwork, where they kind of keep that in. Versus which would sort of make it inaccurate to how the Heresy version's done. So it'd be interesting to see what they do with that. And, it's a bit similar to when we had Gilliman, when he first came back as a Primarch, but then he looked very different from his Horus Heresy counterpart. And obviously a lot of that was to do with his, I can't remember his name, the armor that he was bequeathed and that he appeared in from Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. He had his weird armor resurrection MacGuffin thing where, he appeared, to miraculously heal, thanks in part to the forces of the Yanari as well. But there is a lot of chatter on the interwebs about would they, potentially actually reveal Fulgrim to not actually, or the Emperor's Children to not actually be authentic demony Fulgrim, but Fabian Spile's perfect clone.
Yes,
that's definitely been doing the rounds.
I mean that I can see the logic behind it. I've got a few takes on it. One, that Demon Fulgrim does exist, so if it's not Demon Fulgrim, I think a lot of people would be disappointed.
Yeah.
But personally, I hate the concept of clones in 40k and actually most franchises. So if I briefly talk about Star Wars, Clone Troopers makes perfect sense. But when it was the old extended universe for EU, I think it was it?
Yeah.
So was it? You had like Clone Luke.
The world that has ceased to exist according to
the one that got rid of, although they obviously heavily borrowed from. So you had Luke with 2 U's, and it's like, okay, you just keep bringing people back again and again or you've killed off a character. And this is sort of not spoilers for where Dune goes as a concept, but they also keep bringing, I think they're called more like flesh golems or something, where they keep bringing back characters that had died, effectively clones, right? And I always think that just cheapens the concept of a character or someone's death. So whenever I've heard it in 40k, I've always just thought, oh, that's a bit silly. I just don't think it should exist. So I kind of hope they don't acknowledge it in any way.
Yeah, one of the first major comic book arcs or stories that I really meaningfully read from kind of like the mainline Marvel canon was the Spider-Man clone saga, which is, viewed with reverence and, well, more kind of humorous reverence by the Spider-Man fan base, in so much as it was sort of seen as a very odd and very kind of 90s and very almost kind of weird period in Spider-Man lore. So much so in the Spider-Verse movies, one of the most famous Spider-Man clones, Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider, is kind of reduced to this really kind of like cliche character archetype where he's constantly talking about how muscular he appears. And, in many respects, that was kind of indicative of the time. But that's the thing. I find the clone stories, and again, it's often the weird thing as well when, like, they don't really do anything interesting with the clone. They just go, oh, it's just the same person. Like, we've got the technology to make them basically turn out the same. Like, one of the most interesting concepts I ever see with, like, the clone stuff is where they're not really clones necessarily, but they are duplicates or people that split from themselves in a moment in time and ultimately lead very different lives. I think famously in Star Trek, Will Riker, the number 2 of the Enterprise, the second in command to Picard, basically had a transporter malfunction, and there's another version of him just somewhere else living out his life. And yeah, that whole kind of situation where it's like Will Riker goes away, becomes, revered and does well and gets a very high ranking position. This other version of himself just sits and basically survives on a smashed up ship in the middle of nowhere for a while until he's discovered and rescued. So, their lives go in 2 very different directions. And I think that's where it's interesting, but I always find with clone stuff, it's always like...
Well, I guess with the Fabius Bell one, it's like he's still a loyalist, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
so
correct,
he sort of regrets his actions from the past once I guess he was made aware of them, but ultimately hasn't been corrupted in the same way that the original one was. So he's more like the base genetic level as the original Primarch was pre-Chaos. So is loyalist, which is an interesting take, I think, on that one.
The theory is, though, with Fulgrim, it's more the case of, like, Fulgrim himself possibly even is still a loyalist. He's just lost all control. He's not really in the driving seat. What is Fulgrim actually on the surface may not be him in reality, although the storyline in terms of how that develops throughout the course of the Horus Heresy novels is quite interesting, and I won't spoil it for people, but there is a wibbliness to it.
Okay.
And, yeah. And to be fair, I have to admit, I haven't listened to or read every Horus Heresy book, and I'm pretty confident I'm lacking some of the detail when it concerns the Fulgrim narrative through line. So there may be some critical information that I'm missing, which also is probably why I've opted to pretend as if I'm not going to spoil it for you, because I also probably am not completely educated. Okay. But there's definitely hints towards that in some of the earlier literature that it's all a bit sort of... Yeah, out of body.
Because was it either Abaddon clones or Horus clones that got killed by Abaddon? I sort of feel
Horus
like
clones.
It was Horus clones. Okay, I knew
which
like
he himself is supposed to be.
So
Abaddon is supposed to be a clone of Horus. That's the heavily rumoured thing, because he is the size and stature of, or has become so. So, yeah. I mean, again... A lot of that's also to do with, and what I quite like about it as a narrative device, is like the idea that actually is it so much that he really is the size and stature of Horus, or has his legend grown around him to the extent that he appears more than he was before? But also there is just the literalness of, no, he's just a clone.
Well, I sort of felt like that probably had more weight before the Horus Heresy novels came and explicitly was like, well, he's just a guy, and
he's just real big.
But all that it's like, well, he's called Little Horus. Well, actually, there was a few.
No, Little Horus is
basically people look like they're Primarch, so it's quite easy to explain away. Like, well, of course he looks like him because lots of people in his legion did. Whereas prior in the 40k setting, that was much more of an unusual thing and maybe not something that was necessarily as canon. So it was a bit more, as you say, like, oh yeah, he could be, because no one knows what happened back then. That was almost the joy of that sort of 2010 period of, or maybe more the 2000s, where it was like 40k was a distinct thing, and Horus Heresy was a myths and legends that was never explained away. And, that was a beautiful setting at that point. And, I do love the Heresy as well. But giving it life, as they have done, has also taken away something from 40k, I think.
It's funny. I was listening. I can't remember the name of the comedian now, but he's an Irish comedian that used to play, or he was the Irish bookstore owner in Black Books. I forget his name, but you'll know who I'm talking about. The one that isn't Bill Bailey, who is in
I've got a vague idea what he looks like, yeah.
Anyway, he said a line about, like, he was asked if he thought the world was better with the internet. He said no, but then obviously I'm always going to say that because I remember what it was like before. So, people always are like that, aren't they? People always like the way it used to be.
Exactly.
But that is the case in the case of 40k. I would say that, like, someone articulated it beautifully in a way that I wish I was able to do. So I will just parrot them, which was, 40k of old was a setting, whereas 40k of new is a story, and they're trying to evolve it. And as a result, because it's, you know, a story with twists and turns, it's maybe a little less kind of compelling to kind of create your own kind of narrative with it. Whereas the 40k of old was very much about set dressing. Whereas this is much more
what was that? Because I know the Bard in the Bard and Dr. Baxter's
it could have been them, yeah, it could have been
similar, because he was talking about, I think that he was talking about the old world and Warhammer Fantasy, and he was saying fantasy was a setting rather than a progressive sort of storyline. And he was like, I like the idea that it is just, you know, it is set dressing to a backdrop. And it did make me go, oh yeah, like I do like that, because you're more encouraged to play within the different sort of the times of, say, 40k or fantasy, where you can do more. I'm playing a historical thing. I'm doing Siege of Vrax, even though technically that's been and done and finished, but I'm going to play within that setting, or I'm going to do the second War for Armageddon rather than the third one, for example. And it's like, I think we were always so easy to hate on that as a concept because we never had the progressive storyline. And I feel like now we've got the progressive storyline, are we all kind of regretting it slightly because it doesn't quite live up to the sandbox that we were sort of hoping for? Although there were times when I thought it was really great, but potentially poorly executed. I think Vigilus was a great setting that pushed the story forwards, that was great, that we were all playing in at a certain time and point. Whereas I think the Fall of Cadia could have been one of the best settings to partake in, but the book was like, oh, it's kind of done and dusted now, guys. We never got to really chance to play into the defense of Cadia, which could have been like a several book long, you know, campaign story arc that everyone would have been excited for, much like Vigilus. But unfortunately, sort of breezed past it a bit like what they did with, you know, the Indomitus Crusade initially before they retconned it. And were like, oh, people actually want to do this. Let's do that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, again, to their defense, the Fall of Cadia was, you know, a part of a long-running series of events. They had, you know, obviously begun with the Big War, or the Red War, I think it was called. They started out with those campaign books. They did the Tau campaigns of Monkar and Kion, and they did also the
Chaos
Space
books as well.
stuff. Yeah, they did the Burning of Prospero, or something along that. No, not Burning of Prospero. It was anyway. It doesn't matter. They did a bunch of stuff, and then they did Traitor's Bane and like something Hate, and
because one of them was the Black Crusade book that they did as well.
Yeah, they did loads and loads of stuff, and then they went, oh, and now at the end of all of it, no more Cadia. So yeah, I think, you know, for people who were kind of actively involved in reading the narrative as it was unfolding within those books, you know, it felt that was moving forwards. But I think, you know, again, the falling of Cadia was probably overshadowed by the return of Guilliman and the overall kind of like pace that everything moved, because it just felt very rapid. Although Fall of Cadia at the time felt pretty massive, and the opening of the big rift and everything that came with that was pretty wild. Although that really only paid off in the introduction of 8th edition, I suppose. Yeah. But regardless, I think, you know, ultimately, and you're pretty much spot on. I think it was either, there was a guy who did a really interesting video about, is Guilliman really Guilliman, or did like a whole thing.
Oh, was that the theory one that I sent you maybe a while ago?
Yes, you did, yes.
I mean, I think I've heard a few people sort of parrot that same sort of line of, you know, it used to be a setting, whereas now it's a story. And when it's just, background setting, it's sort of more interesting to play and be creative with. I'm not sure. I think there's pros and cons to both. And or maybe it's easier to see the cons when you're in that choice that has been made for you, versus, you know, the green is grass on the other side, you know, as I say.
Well, the grass is greener on the other side as well.
God, yeah. Well, that's just going to have to go on my t-shirt now, isn't it? That's, classic philism.
Exactly. Keep your tools wet. What was I going to say? I think that's the thing. I think that a lot of people have come along and kind of intellectualized the statements around the main kind of storyline woes with 40k. I think you and I have often done a good job of kind of speaking to the notion of what's wrong, but I don't think we've done a very good job of isolating it and distilling it into a quotable line. So credit where credit's due to those, better educated, potentially English scholars who are, more kind of vast linguists that are able to kind of...
the English scholar of broadsword.
Broadsword. To be fair, he was he wasn't he didn't coin that phrase. He was quoting.
Yeah.
But I do love the bard though. I do genuinely. You know how I've sort of, well, we both have really kind of aligned on the notion that we wouldn't have guests on the show anymore. I feel like the bard is one of the few that I would open the door for. But I imagine I would regret it. Not that I think he wouldn't be a wonderful human being that I'd have a lovely time talking with, but I imagine I just couldn't keep pace with him. It seems that his knowledge and enthusiasm for this stuff just sort of goes to a different plane of existence. I just be like, yeah, all right. You just basically it'd just be us just sort of taking the back seat and letting him drive, just you take the wheel, bud. Have an hour. But yeah. I suppose off the back of that, I mean, we were talking a little bit throughout the show about where we're at with 40k at the minute and other fun stuff. I think, again, 40k for me at the moment, it's like, I'm very disappointed with last episode's Agents of the Imperium review, not because of what we did, but just for the state of that book. I think that was a real missed opportunity. And it really got me thinking about, like, what would I want to see in it? What would I love for them to have done? How could they have made this more awesome? And I think it is just always linked to the kind of core mechanics of the game at the moment. And it really got me thinking about where those problems most sit for me. And, lately, I've been really lucky. I've been playing a lot of Blood Bowl, which is a great game, Phil. I don't know if you've ever played it before, but it's very good.
I have. Not the new edition, but the 2016 or 2014 edition, that one. I played.
It's a great game. And I've been playing a lot of Age of Sigmar, which is also, sorry to say it all the time, but it's a great game. And I've also started playing Mordheim, which is, again, not a great game. But,
not with me, which, when you told me yesterday,
you were invited,
I was deeply disappointed. Invited to this place that takes hours to get to.
Well, it's not my fault, Phil, at the end of the day. If if you learn to drive, you could get there in 45 minutes.
I mean, that's still a long time in my
It is a reasonable amount of time, but a good amount of time if at the end of that 45 minutes is a game of Mordheim.
Well, I mean, true. And, that would be, there and back again is only half a podcast episode to listen
exactly.
to. If I was to listen to us. Exactly, yeah. That's true. I've still got, to be fair, I've still got my, it's always pretty much, I've got a few like little display kind of cabinet-y boxes from, my hobby zone, I think it is. I've got a few that have these little perspex covers, so they're sort of displays, but normally it's just where I dump projects that I still need to work on. And my Mordheim Warband is still in there and has been for probably untouched for the last 2 and a bit years, I would say. I got most of it done. It was just some of like the little henchman-y characters I needed to work on, and I wasn't particularly happy with the paint scheme that I did initially for the ghouls. And I have to say I wasn't a fan of the ghoul minis, so maybe because they were one of the Underworld's warbands. So it might be now that there's more, I could potentially pick up some of the newer ones that might be a bit more nicer and a bit more leaning into the sort of knightly aspect of it. Because I think actually I did a few conversions on that band where I took off some of they were just like holding bones as clubs, and I turned them into swords and stuff. So maybe there's a couple that are okay, but yeah, I think the newer sculpts play into that a lot more straightforward. So yeah, definitely something to revisit basically. And yes, I would like to play at some point. And maybe if you're enjoying it, we can just do our own campaign at yours.
Mate, I would love that. That would be fantastic. I mean, and so I think the thing that I'm realizing though, as I say, I think Age of Sigmar has it, but nowhere near as much as Blood Bowl and Mordheim. So, like, Age of Sigmar, I think the thing that sort of makes Age of Sigmar fun is heroes feel heroic and stuff goes wrong, right? I have more anecdotes and funny stories about stuff going wrong than I do about stuff going right. And I think that's the thing that kind of comes back to me, because when I'm playing a game of Blood Bowl, I'm basically wrestling with the game. I'm trying to basically do everything I can to muck up as little as possible. But all the rules of the game are designed to punish me. And as a result, when amazing things happen, I feel a sense of pride and a sense of accomplishment because I've done something that I'm against all odds to achieve, basically. And I think that's the thing that really resonates with me as I've been playing these kind of games. Like, you know, you can have the best laid plans in the world when it comes to Mordheim, but the dice will just do what it does. And you can, you know, go, I've got heavy armor and a shield, and I've got all these things that are going to serve me well, and my leader is guaranteed to live until they die in the opening salvo from a random crossbow, and you're like, oh good, this is going swimmingly. And I'm not suggesting that, like, you know, I most enjoy losing games, but what I find is that those kind of swingy, fun, moment-to-moment gameplay mechanics, they're usually personified by, disappointment, if you will, actually kind of create really fun, memorable gameplay. And I think that's fundamentally where my issue with 40k is at the minute is, and I think the core complaint is that, and I know lots of people have identified this, and I dare say we talked about it before, but flipping heck, just make heroes and characters cool again, for God's sakes. Like, whatever they do in 11th edition, they just need to make characters cool again, because ultimately, if you've got a really awesome character that does cool stuff on the tabletop, it really makes up for a lot of shortfalls, like effortlessly so. I think the tools and mechanics available to heroes, even in 9th edition, felt so much more substantial than they do now in 10th.
Yeah, I think there's two problems with heroes. One is that there's just an enhancement that you can give to them of your selection of, I think, 3 that you get, whereas before you had a warlord trait and a relic, so you could take 2 things, of which there was probably like 4 different ones that you could take of each one, so you could really kind of customize and like do a combo of some kind onto those characters. And I think they've probably eased back on that for the sake of balance for the tournament scene, which, you know, does make sense, but it just means you lack a lot of flavor and kind of colorful characterization, customization even. And I think that's the one thing I lack in the current edition of the game. And then the other one is that they've just become sort of buffing pieces for other units. It's like, I would much rather the character, rather than have an ability that it grants to the unit it's with, he just has, or she, just has a cool ability, another cool ability that it does itself. Whether it's like, you know, being able to attack twice, or, you know, could be resin a unit if it's like an apothecary type character. Just give me a cool ability that it can do. So if I do want to take it as a standalone piece and run the risk that it's going to be shot at, that's on me. But the reason why you attach it to a unit is more, it's just ablative wounds, and it sort of protects it from things like snipers potentially and stuff like that, although a lot of snipers do have precision, but it just stops it from being shot off the board. So that makes perfect sense. It's like, cool, I've got Calgar, I want to run him with some blade guard to keep him protected, for example. But if I've got a guy that's quite tanky and durable, like Gaz, for example, Gazgirl, it's like, cool, I'm just going to run him up at the board on his own, because he shouldn't really be attached to a squad of anyone. And I don't mind maybe more characters having some kind of lone operative thing where they can't be shot at from a distance of some kind, even if that distance is maybe a lot higher than it was before. So they can be targeted, say, within 18 inches or something. Versus like 12, which is maybe a bit too good a protective measure. But some kind of balance with that. My general take on 40k at the moment is, obviously, I've been to No Retreat and I was playing it there. I've had a game with George, who's a local chap, that I played last week, and I'm hoping to have another game with him this week potentially, but we might try out boarding actions this time round. So nice. I'm actually really enjoying
boarding actions, by the way, is great.
Yeah, and so I really like the old boarding actions, really keen to try the new edition of boarding actions. I'm kind of really enjoying the game at the moment, and I think I've come around to just acknowledging the fact that it's got some dry rules mechanics that there's such a reliance on sustained hits, lethal hits, devastating wounds, things like that are boring because it's just so overused. But I can sort of put that to one side and be like, cool, right, that just is what it is. But I can still have a fun game with 40k. I'm quite enjoying the Prior Nexus mission deck because I finally had enough games to sort of really get into it. And, the tweaks that I have done between, Leviathan and Prior Nexus, I think are pretty good. It still doesn't feel like we're playing in a thematic Necron themed, setting. Like it's basically the same thing as Leviathan, but they've, just changed the color of the back covers or whatever. Like I would have liked it if the actions or objectives that you're actually doing feel like they're themed around actual Prior Nexus and, Necron pylons and stuff like that. That would be my one criticism of that. But I think the game's fun, and in part that could be because I'm playing a new army, so I'm getting to try out something different from what I normally would do. I'm not playing my Guard army or even my Minotaurs. I'm playing with my Thunder Warriors, which obviously play as Custodes, which is a very different play style from the other two. So it could be that as well. And my sort of enthusiasm for now it's painted up as an all fully formed army that I want to play more with it, because it's like I've spent 3 years trying to get the army built and done. So it's like, great, I actually want to play some games. So yeah, my general synopsis is, yes, the game has problems. Yes, it's very unthematic and lacks a lot of customization based on, historical editions, but I'm still having fun games when I play.
Yeah, and I will say that much as well. Like, I have a great time playing Warhammer 40,000 with friends. I also have a good time playing Warhammer 40,000 when I'm playing at a high level of competitive play. I think where it really kind of falls down is when you're playing games against opponents that you're maybe not that well acquainted with and who aren't necessarily as competent in the kind of gameplay mechanics or necessarily as knowledgeable about win conditions, I suppose. And I find that's the thing. Like, I think weirdly now that I've gotten to a place where I've spent so much time playing games like AOS or even like Blood Bowl, or starting to muck around with Legion, where there's Star Wars Legion, that is, where there's the alternating activations and other kind of mechanics. I've been reading up a lot about Bolt Action 3, and I'm really excited about actually getting some games of that in. And it's one of those things where these games have all these really fun, dynamic gameplay mechanics that really add like layers of tactical nuance and create randomness. But like, I find that when I'm playing 40k at the moment, when I'm playing like someone, and again, no disrespect to any individuals out there who are having fun playing in this kind of way, but I think my thing at the moment is you just know what the outcome's going to be because you can see it within like the first two or even sometimes the very first turn. So you literally get to like turn 1, turn 2, and you're like, cool, I can't win, or I'm gonna win. And it just becomes like, because it's you go, I go, you go, I go, it just becomes so evident.
But it's weird because I think the card structure of the Prior Nexus, at least, is quite random, that you can just pull some really bad cards and it sort of screws you over, which is sort of is odd because historically we were always playing Maelstrom in the UK, and the Americans never liked that format because drawing cards was seen as too random. And admittedly, there was a lot of randomness to the original version of it, but sort of the final version was much more streamlined, and you could customize your deck. And if you pulled a card that you couldn't at all do, you could redraw it and stuff like that. So I have mitigated some of that. I have to say, I think the most frustrating thing still in this edition is the scoring is so complicated. It's like, I think I use Tabletop Battles app for scoring, and it's like, if I didn't have that, it would be really difficult to play the game. Like just using a piece of pen and paper, I think I would struggle to do it correctly, because sometimes trying to understand how you score based on the cards, trying to interpret that correctly is quite difficult, whereas the app's got it all correct. So it's like, okay, cool, I've done that thing and I can score those points. Okay, this is this is how these interactions work. Whereas I think AOS is a bit more easier, but you do still, at least with AOS, either need the app or like a pen and paper to jot down what your scores are, because you can't just use dice or counters to be like, cool, I've scored 5, you've scored 4, because it's always 36, 42, 55, 89. It's like really high scoring. you can't keep track of it. I wish that was a lot more streamlined and simpler, basically, I think.
I mean, I will say this. I do actually feel like in AOS, the decision to remove the grand strategy was a good play on their part, because I think that added an element of weirdness to things, and also very rarely actually affected the overall outcome.
I mean, I almost wouldn't mind. So you get to pick a battle tactic every turn to complete. I wouldn't mind it as much if you had maybe more of them, but then it's like from a deck like Prior Nexus where you're drawing them. And the way I think the Spearheads does it really well, where it's like, well, if you don't think you can complete it, you can trade it in to do something else as an ability, or even if it was like, oh, I'm just discarding it for an extra command point or something like that. I think that would be quite a novel kind of gameplay mechanics for how you score and kind of keep things a bit more streamlined. I think sometimes, like because we played a game of AOS yesterday, it's like, I think you get 6 battle tactics and there's obviously only 5 turns, but some of them you just go, okay, this is just impossible to do. And by the time, and quite often you get to like turn 4, you're struggling to do any of the remaining battle tactics. And I know that's maybe one of the skill levels in the game, but you do, and much like in, criticisms for 40k, it's like you do need an army built specifically to do all of those battle tactics. You can't just rock up with a generic army of your own thematic creation and expect to do well in the game, because not every army is going to easily be able to do those things. And something like makes it really difficult. If you've got low mobility, like Tim's Magotkin and Nurgle, you're really going to struggle to do some of them, which is like, take an objective in your opponent's territory, or have units on the Europe in your opponent's territory on the flanks of the tables and stuff like that. It's like quite penalizing, I think, for some factions doing some of those. Whereas if you had a broad spread of, say, 10 or so different ones that you could achieve, some of those might be a bit easier.
No, I agree. I think they're always tweaking that, though, aren't they? Where it's like, in AOS, they kind of actually want it to be difficult to do all the things.
I get that.
You can build around it and make your army make more sense for those options. But
because if they were all easy to do all the time, everyone would be getting max scores, and that's not what you want in the game.
Well, we had that when we started in AOS in 22. Was it 22?
Yeah, because we were doing the General's Handbook, which was it was either the 21, 22
to 23
or 22, 23 one. Yeah, they were all really good. And you would still maybe struggle to do 1 or 2 near the end when you're just low on models.
Yeah.
But it felt a lot easier to do the majority of them for the majority of the game. But it was only the last 10 or 2 it was a bit more of a struggle. But that's just because you're I've got a few models, but they're all tied up in combat, for example.
Yeah, it was always like, someone's killed something of yours, kill something of theirs. It was like, all right, sure, I can do that. Go and touch their rock. Okay, I'll go there and touch their rock. And it was like, super straightforward. But yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, not to be unfair to 40k, I still have a good time playing it. I still enjoy talking about it. I just think it's that thing where it occurred to me, like the other day, where it's just that thing where, man, like, just give us some heroes back. Give us mechanics to make heroes feel heroic. Get them out of units. Stop making them into glorified sergeants. Make them powerful. Like, playing a character like the Lion is cool, or playing a character like, Angron, basically Primarch or Avatar-esque characters.
Because they can stomp about on their own, shrug off any attacks coming their way, and go into a unit and duff them up, which is what good characters should feel like for the majority of things.
100%.
But at the moment, it's like, I've got to hide them in a unit because they'll just be shot at.
Yeah,
Whereas I feel like the old Lookout Sir rules, I think, of 8th edition were very clunky to understand and implement, but it gave characters the relative freedom to run up the board on their own with maybe some units nearish them, but then they could go off and do their own things when they got stuck in.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, I'm not going to pretend that, especially in a game with as much ranged combat as 40k and those old Lookout Sir rules, it was tough sometimes, and people did definitely... Like, and there were those weird instances for a while, weren't there, where it's like, closest model, but they're not. You can't even see them.
Yeah, the closest models you couldn't see because they're behind ruins, so therefore you can't shoot the big thing that's out in the open. Yeah, there were some silly instances of that for sure.
But anyway, on the topic of, I suppose, terrain-based things, Kill Team 2nd, or whatever this edition is of Kill Team, the second edition of the version of Kill Team that was popularized 3 years ago is now available. And I've been reading through the rules for it. It seems very similar to where it was before, with some interesting tweaks. Obviously, everyone out there who's interested in Kill Team kind of knows what the key differentials are, and I'm not going to kind of get crazy into the weeds with it now, but it's a really good box set. Is probably the best place I can start with it. And obviously, seeing what's on the horizon with the Rattlings and the Tank Busters, really quite promising. But yeah, the out of the gate, the Vespid and Scion box with the terrain that it comes with, really good value and really good terrain sets, which is great. I mean, again, Games Workshop terrain sets are like, if you're looking for an investment strategy, at least based on how things have gone for the last 10 years, buy yourself a box of, Games Workshop terrain, because it sticks around for 5 minutes and then basically 3 years later, for whatever reason, becomes utter eBay fodder, and you can sell that, awful piece of, I don't know, City of Death terrain that you had no interest in years ago for, many hundreds of pounds tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. The Cities of Death go for insane money, which is a shame. And I think they were quite complicated to build, but the customization on it was really insane. I think, so I picked up just the terrain from the new Kill Team box.
You got it, nice.
But I just got the terrain from like a splitter, basically, because it was pretty cheap. It was like 50 quid, I think, which was like, for all the terrain, great. I thought that was a great bargain. And I have already in a lot of the ruins from the first Kill Team, actually, when that came out as a box set. So I've got those city terrain pieces as well. I think I pretty much built as standard. And those pieces over the years had a lot more customization to them. Like, you could get the sort of the buttresses and the statues, and then you had some really rare pieces like balcony pieces that you could get, which I think were maybe only available with the sort of the Sisters faction specific terrain piece and stuff. Because with her, with that piece, you could get sort of like angled corners,
yes, correct,
like 45 degrees rather than 90 degrees, so you could get some like octagonal shapes and stuff like that. And I sort of wish there was more of that, because the new terrain looks cool. I've obviously literally just glanced over the sprues, and obviously I've seen images online, but everyone's just building it as the predefined shapes, which makes sense from the Kill Team perspective. But I'd be quite curious to be like, oh, how can I kit bash this into something more interesting other than just an L-shaped ruin? But it sort of feels like at the end of the day, ultimately, L-shaped ruins, as boring as they are as a concept, do give you the most flexibility in sort of scattering them on the boards. So yeah, I'd like to be able to do something more interesting than an L-shaped ruin, though.
Well, I mean, to their defence, they are actually boxed shaped.
No, they are box sets. I realised that as I was saying it, because I think they're meant to be like sort of strongholds or something in your games of Kill Team. Yeah. So maybe it's fine to keep them as that, and you've got much more of a defined footprint for those.
I think with those kits, having built them, I would say that there's very little in the way of customization, like what I would assert was available in, say, Sector Imperialis or Sector Mechanicus, or even Zone Mortalis. I think those kits and those ranges are exceptional because of their sheer versatility. I think, even the Hive, what was it called? The stuff they did for Necromunda that's the outside of the Hive stuff. It was
not the Ash Wastes.
Ash Waste, thank you.
Waste,
yes,
okay.
Yeah. So the Ash Waste stuff, like the way those kits interact with
that
it,
has a crazy amount of customization, because I think the main designers on Twitter and occasionally post little sneak peeks of, you can put this with this thing. So one of them, I think, recently is I can't remember exactly what it's called. It was almost like a command module that they did for the Zone Mortalis style game, where it's a bunch of different terminals.
Oh, right,
And he's like, rather than having all the terminals mount into the central point, he's like, oh, they actually designed to perfectly fit into the Zone Mortalis walls as well, if you wanted. So you can have these little command terminals poking out of the walls rather than the central piece. And I was like, oh wow, that's really clever that they've done these shapes deliberately to have this customization options. I think in a way, the Necromunda terrain kits, like the Zone Mortalis stuff specifically, is like the kit basher's dream when it comes to terrain and what you can do for it. There's so many cool like kits and add-ons that they've done. They've got like almost like a sort of the bunker-esque stuff for your base. They've done the market stalls that you can do. And then obviously Ash Wastes have got all this, nomadic, tent type stuff. All looks very cool.
Yeah, so you're talking about the Hive data stack clusters that came in the...
and
they are perfectly sized to go into the...
Like the little archway crevice bits, which is very cool that they've done that.
They're super cool.
And they've done the new, obviously, I think third party stuff's done it for years, but they've done like the ruined wall sections that you can now get, which I think is super cool as well.
I think this is the thing with like, it's a kit basher's dream, but also simultaneously nightmare just because of
the cost. And maybe trying to get access to it as well. I do just wish the terrain kits in general were just much more cheaper. And obviously, like we said, you do get the bundle deals in the box sets for things like Kill Team, and that's sort of what does make them a good bargain. Because you can get a decent amount of terrain for a relatively cheap price, but outside of that, it's just impossible. I do sort of wish they would bring back the Sector Mechanicus terrain, because that had a lot of customization and conversion stuff to them. And I managed to pick up a few bits over the years, but ultimately I felt like I needed more to make something really interesting with it. But to buy more was always just an expense. And the really cool things like the Gene Stealer Cult, the drill piece that they did.
Oh yeah, love that.
That never stuck around. I mean, I don't know if it's still available, because every time I looked at it, it always disappeared, and then I think briefly it came back, and then it's gone again.
It's gone for good now. It's never coming back.
I sort of wish I got that, because that was so cool.
Same with basically a huge percentage of 40k terrain features have all just gone away. There's a few that have held on in there, but the greater majority have gone away. And obviously they have recently added some. So like Space Marines have like the Hammerfall Bunker that has kind of come back.
Lore-wise does deep strike down onto the tabletop if you played Space Marine.
Yes, yeah. But in game terms, you just put it on the tabletop.
I know.
But Chaos Space Marines have got their portal. The Elder have got their portal.
Does anyone else got a portal?
Does the Death Guard still have their furnace?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's still in the game.
I think that's still in the game.
Tails still have their Tide Wall. That was still
available. They got what's
Guards have their Aegis defense line, which is also a wall.
But Knights have lost their fueling station. And,
that wasn't really anything, really. I assume Orcs
you can still buy that kit, though, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's one of the few Warhammer 40,000 terrain kits that you can still get.
It felt like it was nothing about that was unique. I think maybe there was a console that was, but ultimately it was just bits of Sector Mechanicus terrain slapped together in a box. And at least with the Sisters sort of shrine or altar, that had some unique kits and the statue in it, which was very cool. I wish maybe I should do. They need to do like made to order for these things and just do a range rotation. Like even if it's every 6 months, go cool. Here's a bunch of them that are back on, and it's periodic enough that people can save up for them, because if they are going to bring them back, they probably will still be expensive. It does make me think I should get the bunker and the the radar dish one. Yeah,
they actually for a time had a really good deal on an actual Kill Team Battle Zone sector box at one point.
Half decent. I think it might still be available Warhammer World because I've seen it there a few times.
Yeah, well, it's really weird. They also then did another box of it, and it was hilarious. Like one of them had the
was way more expensive than the other one. I remember we talked about it on the podcast one time.
But it was weird. It was way more expensive and had less in it or something, if I remember correctly.
Well,
there was definitely a period of time where I walked into the local Warhammer store, and I think they had both on the shelf, and I was like, what?
I think one had some more walls and maybe one of an extra bunker, but the price difference was like almost double, and it was like, I will get the one with slightly less because it's got kind of everything that you need for a much better price.
Yeah, I mean, the one I probably should get around to getting just because I think it's super cool is the boss bunker for the orcs. I think that's one that hopefully...
because that's like the head of the Stomper. Yeah, that's a cool one. Then you've got loads of the orc terrain, haven't you?
I do, yeah. I ended up buying 3 boxes of that.
You madman. Madman, because you were like, I'm going to do the Games Workshop tournament terrain layout exactly how they've done it, which lasted all of 5 minutes.
Well, I feel cool.
No, but I mean, for them, it being like the top table terrain that they were using. I mean, I'm sure it's still there, but it just wasn't something they'll eventually
do their own, tournament style kit. I bet
I'm surprised they haven't already. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised that they don't, because they know they can't compete with the cheapness of the MDF terrain. But if they could do something, it would be cool.
It's weird, isn't it? Yeah, because I couldn't. Because I suppose they'd have to do it in plastic, right? That's just their whole thing, isn't it?
if they did, here's the thing, Games Workshop doing something like MDF would be quite mad, but it would probably be the only way that they could make it cheap enough. Because if they do it in plastic, the thing they could do, and here's the thing, other than the design cost makes no difference from pure plastic, just design something that's very simple looking. Produce it in plastic and just reduce the price. So it's like you can have a full table's worth of terrain for the 50 quid, let's say, even though that still might be more expensive than the MDF stuff. But it's very basic terrain looking. Doesn't look that great, but it's still better than MDF. But if you want the cool premium plastic terrain kits, then obviously you're paying several £100.
Yeah, I just don't see Games Workshop doing a shoddy job in terms of don't get me wrong,
doing something cheap looking.
Yeah, I just don't think it's really their way. I'd love to see them do the card terrain again.
I think honestly, because we occasionally look at the card terrain, and I've got some, and I keep thinking about building it. And I've got some built for like the fantasy stuff I've got built.
Yeah,
the printed card is pretty cool. It looks really good. It's super simple to build. Obviously, there's like some rigidity issues maybe with some of them. And you get when you cut and fold the card, you get the white line down it where it's, not printed. But from an ease of use and accessibility, it's like, cool, I just need to pop out this card stock, fold it in a few places, and sometimes glue it, or maybe it's just held together with like other plastic pieces, like the old Necromunda ones that you could get. You got these end squares that can fit in. Yeah. I think, visually it looks great on the tabletop. Yes, it's just printed card, but that's no different now from, your printed neoprene mats. It's like you're getting rid of the verisimilitude of the visuality of how, no one's got these gorgeously flocked tables with loads of cool, trees that they've made and stuff anymore. It's just all mats, gaming mats. And in a world of gaming mats, cardstock terrain is arguably a lot better looking than barely painted MDF.
Oh yeah, I think the MDF stuff that tournaments utilize it's one of the worst things about the game at the moment is the way that it looks at the high levels of competition. At least have again, I had this grumble in the last episode, but it's the LGT finals where it was like the most visually overstimulating mat they could have used with the most boring looking terrain on it, then throw in all the mad markers. I know, again, I've said this already, but it's wild. But I will say that, I think the difference will be, Phil, when we eventually get around to doing the Lookout Sir events, we'll channel that old school joy, and all our tables will be 4x4s of either Realm of Battle boards or slabs of MDF covered in beautiful flocks. That is my my promise.
Okay, brilliant.
That's what it's going to be. That's what it's going to be. I already have a work in progress board from a few years ago that I want to actually. I found it in my loft the other day. I was like, oh God, I actually should really finish this. It's all based around Zone Mortalis, and I was like, oh, that'd be actually super sweet if I actually got that done.
That's nice. Just going back on a slight tangent to Mordheim, I did.
Yeah, please.
I'm trying to think if it was built or not. I did buy off of eBay a bunch of the Mordheim terrain, like the official old stuff. I think so. It was the stuff that came in the original box set. I think there was a later edition, which is like sort of an in or something. I don't think I've got that, but I would like to try and get that. But the original stuff, I think I bought. And I can't remember if I think it was actually all pre-built, because trying to buy unpunched stuff's insanely difficult.
I mean, insanely difficult and insanely pricey, I think, is the thing. But yeah, because they had these really interesting brickwork elements and like windows and things that you could put into them. Right?
Oh yes, yeah. And they also did their own upgrade sets of like metal window frames if you wanted to make your own. And here's one interesting gripe, I want to say. So the majority of people that build terrain for Mordheim do, I think, Tudor style houses where it's effectively wattle and daub walls with the beamed wooden outer frame, basically. And then normally a top floor extends out overwards, much like you got sort of in London, England, sort of before the Great Fire. However, not only, I think maybe some of the artwork does allude to that, but I don't think a lot of it does. But all the official Mordheim Games Workshop terrain is all brick buildings. It's not the terrain that people build. Stylistically, there's a real visual disconnect, and it just feels like the community has gone, it's this because of this time period. But actually, the bits that Games Workshop have ever produced aren't that, which I always find quite interesting. And I don't know if it's maybe, you could say one's the poor side of town and one's the maybe more richer buildings with brickwork and stuff like that. But a lot of medieval towns and cities are actually were a lot of brickwork stuff versus, wattle and daub and wood and stuff like that. But I always found that it was my one like mental gripe, and I've never had a chance to voice it to anyone, so I'm putting it out there. And I'd love to have the explanation as to why that is the case, because I've not seen the answer.
I was just looking at screenshots from the City of the Damned video game for Mordheim to see what their frame of reference was, and yeah, you're right, there's still a lot of brickwork on display there as well. I mean, I have to be honest, Phil, if I could have my way when it comes to like Mordheim, would be that if we were, as you say, if we are going to play some games around my place, would be to try and basically bring to life that kind of card terrain, like proper thing.
Yeah, that stuff. Oh, the one I always loved the idea of doing, and I spent probably days thinking about and drooling over, was the Battle for Middle-earth. I think it was the I can't remember the name of it, the Hobbit town where it's on the lakeside, I think it was called.
Lakeside.
So it's all cabins, wooden cabin structures that have interior and exterior detail is how they've done it. And you've obviously got the planking for the lake, the walkways, but they make the perfect sort of like, raised up planking that people so often love to play in Mordheim, because you need that verticality. So you could sort of and because they've got the inside details on those buildings, you could kind of cut open a roof and have the walkways going from one rooftop to another, for example. I think the downside of those buildings is they're potentially slightly too small. Maybe not so for the old wartime miniatures, but maybe more so if you're doing more modern Games Workshop minis, because the scale of those ones have gone up over the years. And obviously, Battle for Middle-earth has always been a bit on the small side. But potentially, to be honest, most people always do buildings slightly on the smaller side anyway, because, it's the same with vehicles. You've got to scale them down ever so slightly because they just won't ever fit on the tabletop otherwise. But that was such a fantastic set. And I think even the Goblin Town had similar sort of walkway structures that you could pilfer if you needed
Goblin
more
Town,
of those.
for
Goblin
sure,
Town, yeah.
Yeah, the Hobbit box set, right? Like, yeah, that was something, again, for a while that was always kicking around, and I was always like, I should pick this up at some point, and I never did. So amongst my many regrets in that sense. I was obviously, in the case of Mordheim, like right now, I just sort of feel like, it was just too young to appreciate how awesome it was at the time. I just remember going to Warhammer, Games Day in '99 and seeing all the display tables for it and everyone getting super excited about it and me just being like, fantasy, who cares? And just be like, oh, you fool.
Well, no, I think you're totally right, even at that age. I mean, as much as I love fantasy, I probably wasn't quite in the hobby enough to appreciate Mordheim. However, loads of people always say the specialist game should bring it back and it would be great and make them lots of money. And it probably would, but I kind of wish they wouldn't bring it back in terms of redoing it and relaunching it as a new game system. I think they would just have to honor the original game and just do a reproduction, like a specialist anniversary box where they go, cool, here's the Mordheim box set, or here's the Mordheim rules as they were originally, and that's it, and bring new people into the hobby that way. Because I think Games Workshop has been surreptitiously bringing out Mordheim warbands via the medium of, Warcry and Underworlds over the many, many years. So it has sort of weirdly been supported for miniatures, unofficially at least.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's definitely the spirit is alive. But yeah, is there anything else we need to cover off? Probably not. Upcoming releases are very AOS themed. Also, they have now just announced that they're going to be putting the Mechanicus stuff for Titanicus on pre-order, so that's interesting, I suppose. That was basically announced like a week ago and is now already on pre-order.
I mean, that's very quick. Yeah, the Dark Mechanicum stuff, I'm super excited for what they will do as a wider model range. I think that's super interesting. And again, something I'd love to see in 40k as well.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's the thing. I think, at the moment, really now in terms of like what's going on between now and the end of the year, it's all kind of set in stone, really. Like basically the releases are set. We know what's happening. We can kind of see the route to the end of 2024, at least as it concerns Warhammer and Warhammer hobby related things. So yes,
well, there'll be some interesting Christmas stuff coming out, no doubt. The normal Christmas tats that Games Workshop likes to put out, or normally it's when they do a range refresh of the tools or the hobby stuff that they often give us new bits, and then there'll be a Christmas miniature, and then there'll be Christmas Day reveals. So there's a few little bits to look forward to. But as you say, Blood Angels is coming out, and then that's it for this year.
Exactly. Are we going to talk about Blood Angels in the next episode, or
if it's out? Because obviously it's like a 2-week pre-order window, so I don't know if I'll get my codex by then.
No, that's fair. Have you ordered it?
Is it out already?
No, it comes out next Saturday, basically.
Oh, it comes out, but I haven't pre-ordered it, so no, I need to actually do that.
Oh, fine. Fine.
In which case, in theory, if it's still in stock, I should get it in time. So yeah, potentially. If not, we do one of those chats where we ramble on about something.
Something will come along.
We still need to do our favourite campaign settings. I still want to do that one.
Oh, yeah, we need to do our favourite codexes.
Oh, of all time? Yes, yeah.
Yeah, all-time favourite codexes. We have to pick 3 favourites, which and you get like 1 honourable mention as well. So actually 4 favourites.
Okay, that sounds fun.
But the honourable mention shouldn't necessarily be because it's your favourite, just because you think there's something interesting to say about it. So yeah, I think that'd be cool. And then and we're prepping for the quiz. We're contemplating trying to do it in person. The complexity of doing it in person, as you will see, or if you go back and listen to the episodes where we have done it in person, is that our recording setup isn't quite as good as we'd want it to be. I've been investigating how to make it better. The answer seems to be throw thousands of pounds at it, which isn't really something me and Phil are in the position to do. So yeah, that's the thing. It's one of those. So I'm looking into. I'm lucky, I suppose, in so much as I have friends who do full-time content creation and they have amazing studio setups with all the kind of relevant stuff. But I don't want to presume that I can get a lend of their equipment or use their facilities, because at the end of the day they're busy monetizing their own things, and good on them. But I'm looking into it. But look forward to that as well. We're working up for that. We're basically not too many episodes between now and Christmas, essentially. Essentially, we've got this one coming out on the 19th, which, then we got the next one coming on the 2nd of November. One after that on the 16th of November, then the 30th of November, then the 14th of of December will basically be our last full episode for the year. And then we'll probably chuck out the Christmas quiz, probably Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. I like to try and get them out Christmas Day.
I don't know why, Dan, but obviously that's on you. And you're a madman you're a fool to yourself to force yourself to get it edited by then.
Well, I don't mind. And the thing is with it is as long as we record it in good time in like November, I don't really mind.
Well, we should tell Richie to get on with making the quiz then.
Yeah, so my hope is that we record it weekend of the 30th of November. That would be my hope. And then that would give me ample time. And it would give you ample time, Phil, to do the scorekeeper segment.
I don't know what you mean. He's an actual person. I have to phone him up and get him to come along to record in my studio, my home studio. That's how it works.
We could do it old school and get maybe Adam back to reprise his first role.
That's true. That would save me a lot of time.
We could do it like that. Maybe we could get him to wear like a green suit and be on a green screen and be like a floating head, and I could do him like a kind of Games Master esque character.
Master. Yeah, that would be quite cool. Do you know who would actually be much better at that?
Tell me.
Dr. Baxter. He can be like, "What up, losers?" Or whatever it is he says. I mean, as a floating head, that would be quite iconic, I think.
Should we ask him? I don't know him. I have no way of getting in contact with him. But
I don't know. Apparently, he lives in Oxford, so I should be able to
go find him. Phil.
I will roam the streets looking for him.
Ask around. See if you can find him.
Maybe I need to go to the local games club and be like, who plays Old World, and see what I can.
Oh, dude, I bet he's down the local club. Why are you going to the local club anyway?
Because I think it's on Wednesdays, and that used to be always when we recorded. So I never got to go.
Changed now, mate. So you can mix it up. Go to the club.
Yeah, but it was such a good excuse not to go. I don't want to have to socialise with people.
Mate, it's the best thing. It's the best thing, I tell you. I love the club. It's it's one of the best bits of the hobby is the sharing the club experience. But anyway, look, guys, that's enough of that. Episode 191 done and dusted. Thanks so much. See you around. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.